Welcome to Level Sync, a Final Fantasy XI podcast with your hosts, DA Soccer, Caladrius, Lost Time Lord, and Quetch.
Welcome, everyone, to Level Sync, a Horizon Final Fantasy XI podcast. This week, my friends, we have a fantastic episode for you. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because we have an interview with Aerec. You love him, you may hate him, but he's here with us this week. But before we get into the interview, I want to introduce ourselves. I am the Lost Time Lord, and I am with my favorite podcasting friends. Starting on the left, we've got DA Soccer. Say hello, DA.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey. Right next to him, we've got Icy Caladrius, also known as Cal. What's going on, my friend?
I'm good. How's it going?
He's challenged. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, we have Quetch. What's going on, my friend?
Not much, man. Excited for this one.
Oh, me too. This is going to be so fantastic, guys. Buckle your seatbelts and get yourselves ready, because here we go. We have an interview with the main man himself, Aerec. Take it away. Thank you for being here. A lot of people may not know exactly who you are. They've seen the name, I'm sure. They're part of the Discord. They've seen you around standing in Juno in your bright blue shirt with your fancy pink name and your awesome looking pearl. But who are you, Aerec? Who are you? What is your title? And what do you do for this amazing Horizon community?
Well, that's fun. So I'm Aerec. I've been around the 11 community for 20 years. And the private server community going on 6, Nasomi, Supernova, Wings, admin of Wings, and then left Wings because I was tired of Era and tired of things being always the same. My biggest rant with 11 is the fact that we keep restarting these private servers because they keep going defunct, and the problem is we're playing the exact same game with absolutely zero changes going over it. So, we wanted to make something new, and so I left and started a project at the time called Lily Set, to kind of go off of the previous Wings theme, but that quickly changed to Horizon once I brought on other things. My title, I guess I'm the project lead. I wouldn't really consider myself like the owner anymore. That the owner is definitely split between Frank and I currently. Like we are joint, quote unquote, what you'd call owners of the server. But I'm the project lead, I guess. I would guess, most of what I do is Era Plus stuff nowadays. I let a lot of the Era stuff go off of to other people, like, because what I said before, I've done this for 20 years. I've coded a lot of Era. I think I've coded Chains of Promathia from start to finish. For Wings, and then I did it here again when we started up on LSB, when getting everything to work and getting it started. And I really just thought there were so many other cool things that we could really do with one, the Final Fantasy XI private server code base, and two, the game itself. And obviously there's some limits to both sides of those things, which we can get into later. But besides that, I guess you can call me the project lead. I do all of the updates myself, so every Friday when we update the server, it's legitimately me. Fridays are my off days from work, so I literally sit there for half of the day, if not more, updating the server. And besides that, I think of myself as like a PM. A lot of the organization and keeping dev tracking along and making sure people are happy is me. So when it comes to organizing our different teams, which we did, I wanted to do Horizon a little differently than other private servers where we brought in people to really be compartmentalized in what they do. So like when we have a developer, your developer is never going to be a GM, and your GM is never going to be a dev. If they want to do one or the other, that's that. But I thought the reason why we should separate these things is a more fair play. Devs being able to see what they're coding coming soon, and also having access to a GM character really puts a lot of responsibility on people. And I thought, let's keep that amount of responsibility on as little, less people, so that, when you're a dev, you can focus on that. You don't really have to worry about, what's going on the GM side, unless the GMs need help coding something. And so that's what we do. We have a GM team, we have a dev team, we have an art and creative team, which is, I think, something every server that's looking to succeed should have, and everybody can see from at least what we've done. Is I think that's been one of the best things that we did, from the get-go, was let's bring on a bunch of creatives who are going around the community who really are just making fan art, and have them create things that, emotes for the server, advertisements. We didn't advertise, but things to do, like, launch trailers, and all of the art that we have, the website art, all of that stuff is done internally by our team. We haven't, we didn't go out and pay someone to do it. We had volunteers from all over the community come and be like, let's come together. And I think that was a big hit as well. So, yeah.
Let's walk it back a bit. You said you've been playing for 20 years. So where was your original Aerec experience? Like, where did you start, and what would you say your prime was?
I was on Lakshmi pretty much the entire time. I think Lakshmi started dying down Abyssia time frame. So Abyssia started hitting, and then the big link shells, which were Imminent, Search and Destroy, were the two that I was really involved with. They started kind of falling out. Abyssia really killed the drive of Lakshmi, at least in my opinion. And so a lot of people started kind of breaking out. That was the point where you had like these big old super hardcore in-game link shells, like the people who were like, let's go like buy NASA, and stuff like that. I'm sure the hardcore people will know exactly what I'm talking about. But and they started kind of splintering into like much more smaller niche groups to just go clear Abyssia content, because there wasn't really a need at that point anymore, especially with the gear wise, that people had to do things with more than like 10 people. So you had all of like the leadership of these big link shells with all of the relics like going off and making these super OP groups and just spamming Empyreans and stuff like that. But I had a bit of time on Bahamut, under the same moniker. I've always been Aerec. I had a mule named Tidy, and then a mule named, I think it's Kai, but most people know me from Aerec. And I am now on Ashura. So Lakshmi started dying. I went to Bahamut because one of my close friends went to Bahamut, but he stopped playing, and so I was kind of dead zone on Bahamut. And then I took a break about mid Abyssia, and that's really the only break I've ever had from Final Fantasy XI, was like that Abyssia kind of dead zone. And then when Seekers came out, I came back and found myself on Ashura because I wanted a populated server where I could play with people and find people to do stuff. And I think that's the trap retail players fall into now, is I think it's really hard to get into things on other servers. I went back to retail and hopped servers. I server transferred for the sole reason of purchasing Alexandrite, because the Alexandrite on Ashura was 7K a pop, and the Alexandrite on Bahamut was 3K.
Yep.
And so I hopped server to save, I think, like 150 mil on my death penalty.
Someone's making a mythic.
Well, I'm done. Like I said before, I have played for 20 years, and when I say I have played, I still play. Like I have my my pre-sortie best in slot Corsair that I did everything on. I have a red mage with Krakea. I never did the red mage mythic just because I just didn't feel like it, and it wasn't really needed for any content. Nope. And then I have Savage Blade War, Savage Blade Dragoon, all of the requirements.
Owns retail right now.
Well, I mean, it's just like here's the thing about the NA scene when it comes to at least Ashura, in my opinion, where everybody got really lazy, and it was just like, are there other methods to clearing things like V20s and stuff like that in Odyssey? Yeah, there are. But who wants to do that when you can just like super buff a bunch of melees with Savage Blade and just have them YOLO the boss? And you get like I think it's like on V20s now with the gear that's in the game, especially with MP plus 3s, that it's like a 90% chance if you're geared enough that you'll clear V20s now. But V25s are like, I think, and even I'm not, even retail people will know this, V25s are like the equivalent of it's a dice flip. It's a coin flip. It's the equivalent of absolute virtue in my mind, which is like, why would SE put in this content when it's literally there's no skill there in clearing a V25. It is literally a complete coin flip when it comes to you're probably not clearing this without your winning your coin flip. It's all on whether the right things happen at the exact right time and whether the boss uses the right sequence of moves to where you can kill it fast enough before it just kills you. And it's just like that's not fun. And it's why I really stopped playing. And I didn't really stop playing until like a month before release. So like last November is when was the last time I logged on. And I was trying to get a couple of the devs, the Horizon devs into retail. So I was carrying a couple of them through content, and we got to the point where you hit the Odyssey 45-day wait. We were like geared. They had all of the gear they needed, and we got to Odyssey, and it was just like, well, we can't do anything else for another like a month. And so it's just like they got bored waiting for their their timers on their unlocking B and C paths, where it's just like they stopped playing, and then it was just me again, and I was like, well, I'm that toodaloo, I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. So
you heard it here first. Go ahead.
No, you heard it here first. No, please continue.
I was gonna say you heard it here first. There's not gonna be timers when that content eventually comes out on Horizon. You said.
I mean, so I'm of the firm belief where if your reason is you're concerned about RMTs, that you're putting a 45-day wait timer on even doing an event that takes you like a week to get to, you're doing something like really wrong. Like I don't like it. Legitimately takes you a week of time in current retail to get ready for like Odyssey AB. C's a different story. Like you can start grinding like those low level Vs, no problem, as long as you're like with friends. But it's just like, why am I waiting 45 days to go do Odyssey B when it's literally just I'm going to run through this to unlock C and maybe farm a little bit later. So
I feel like you and I could continue to have a complete conversation about retail. I also took a break at V25.
It's completely okay. So for everybody who thinks I hate retail out there, I love it. I think it's a completely different game, and there's a reason why we made Horizon. But it is still a fun game as long as you're playing with friends. That's it. That is my 100% opinion. Is current Final Fantasy XI retail is a fun game. It's completely mismanaged, and you can tell that there's no love put into it by the dev team anymore. Like, they are so understaffed that they had to split up their monthly update into two separate. I think it's two separate ones, right?
Yeah,
they're doing an Ambuscade update, and then they're doing the Voracious Resurgence update completely separately, which is the first time that's happened in like years.
Isn't this the final chapter of Voracious Resurgence? And
but it's the final chapter. But
or whatever.
What's 2 weeks gonna do? Right? I don't know. That's really. It just seems to me like it's probably not finished, or that's no offense. That's something that we would fucking do like we did with 1.1, right? Like it's definitely not ready. Let's push it off for 2 weeks and it'll be ready by then, sort of thing. But
wishful thinking.
Yeah, wishful thinking. I don't know.
Like, that kind of leads into like the next question, actually. So like, we were curious, and I know a lot of the community is curious. Like, are you able to talk us through kind of like what your debugging and like playtest process is, like especially when it comes to things like job changes and adjustments to the way things were on retail? Like, what is the testing process for that look like? Just to give you some background, like I've been in the gaming industry as a QA professional for the last over 20 years. So like, I know a thing or two, and I'm just curious, like from your point of view, like what does that look like for you guys?
Okay, so I'm gonna hit a couple of nails on the head, including the QA question, and one of them has to go with also development. And we've had to deal with this. Like I said, this isn't my first rodeo when it comes to like running a private server. I was the quote unquote lead admin of Wings for like a year, and it's really, really, really a difficult balance between making the volunteers who develop for a private server want to dev and have fun deving and have fun working with your team and not consider it their day job. because it's not. So you have to have this clear distinction between like my warning when we bring a developer in and we start like, you know, prepping them for being a Horizon developer. So what like our intro process is we tell everybody who wants to dev, you just go dev for Air Skyboat, which is the open source thing. Go code a little bit of Era. Let us see what your code looks like. Let us get to know you as a person. And then once they've done enough code for us to be like, okay, we want to really get to know you before we like hand you the keys to the kingdom, which is the code base. We bring them into the staff Discord, give them a junior dev role, and then we talk, we dev with them for a extended amount of time, and then they either become a full Horizon developer or they don't. But the problem is with that is we have to really, really come to the fact that is we have to make it fun. We have to make it a family. We have to make it about, this is not a job. Let's have fun with it. And that's why I think Horizon benefits, is because we can code these new fun things that haven't been in Final Fantasy before, when, coding Era is a lot of capturing. And so when it comes to QA, it's the same thing. We had a huge, like 50-person internal tester development. We vetted every single person. We interviewed like 300 people, and it was agonizing. No offense to the people we interviewed, but it was hours and hours of just typing and talking to people and trying to, I'm not like a psych. I don't read people very well. So it was legitimately like hours of grilling people into trying to figure out whether, if we bring you on for testing, are you, one, actually going to test for us? Are you, two, going to use our test server for cheating? Three, are you going to leak the things that you're testing to the public? Because we needed to make sure that people were going to, test for us and actually not leak what we wanted to do. And surprise, a lot of people didn't want to actually test. They wanted to do the other two things, or they just wanted to join the staff Discord hoping they can get insider info. But we brought in like 50 people, like 6 of them actually tested for us. So a lot of it became kind of cyclical, where we would put out a PR. We gave literally a checklist for testers to go run, and those 6 testers plus the developers themselves would go through it. But that's like 10 people, and that's not proper QAing when it comes to like the stuff that I do professionally for my job. It's not the stuff like an actual like game dev would do. There would be like hundreds of hours put into most like testing things. And it's just one of those things, where we did our best. Before, legitimately, the month before we launched, the server was pretty much ready to go, and we were legitimately just running content all day, every day. We were legitimately having people start new characters, leveling up to like 50, going through COP missions, going through ZM missions. And it was just one of those things where it was just all about getting things working correctly and making sure those things, the balancers were doing that instead of balancing. Like it was not a fun time, because there was so much more that we could have done had we had the ability to do this on like more of a professional scale, I think is the word to say that. Like if we could have money and hire people to legit, like a legit gaming company would do, I think there are so many bigger and better things that could have been done. And that's not faulting our team. It's just faulting the fact that, we really are, when it comes to this, a volunteer project. And not everybody can put in 40 hours a week like some of us were doing pre-launch. We legitimately,
everybody's got jobs, right? Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, so I like not lying. Frank, Ophi, and I were probably putting in 100-hour weeks. We were working our 40-hour day jobs, if not more. And then we were legitimately sitting in Discord developing and testing the server from like 6 p.m. to like midnight every night.
Wow.
For like months. So I think,
crazy.
I don't remember when we left Wings. It didn't really ramp up to be that bad until like summer. Like summer before launch, because we were really just casually deving, and really working on Air Skyboat, to where we really, so the one thing that a lot of us devs, like the code people, liked about Wings was we wanted to have a error repo that people could come, and if you wanted to make a server that was based on 75 cap, that you just had code available to do that. Land Sandboat, which is like the current like base repo. I don't want to get into like the technical terms, so if you guys need me to explain things, I will. But it's like the base code for the private server community at the moment is based off of retail. So everything, the formulas are all current day retail. And that's vastly different. Like weapon skill damage from back then, like two-hander damage, one-hander damage, like that, just formulas in general, how the game acts, vastly different.
Trusts, home point crystals, all
Yeah, there's tons.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
tons. We're not going to get into all the details, but
Right.
like, so what our first goal was is like we didn't own Wings anymore, so Crit and I weren't the head of Wings, and it was one of our goals. Like that's why we dev there so much. Is like it's working. If someone wants to go make an Aero server based off of Wings, you could do it. And someone did it, and his name was Frank, and he made Limit Break, right?
Mhm.
Which was kind of better than Wings in a lot of ways because he wasn't hamstringed by a bunch of decisions that the original devs made. Things like chocobo digging and treasure hunter and other things being completely absurdly broken.
Wait, you just
Right.
listed two of my favorite things in the game, by the way.
Well,
Just
okay,
rattle them off.
so if we want to go back to Wings, we can. So Wings had completely unlimited chocobo digging period. You could, if you wanted to, dig 24/7 for like a month, like 24/7. If you could bot and script it, I think it was like a month of 24/7 digging, and you would be max. That's it, down max. There's no fatigue, there's no nothing. You're just digging until you get enough skill to do whatever you wanted in digging, which was broken because you could just get max digging, like screw elemental ores, just go to Yoder jungle, get 100 woodworking, and sit there and pump out mahogany poles all day, every day for like 300K an hour. And that's not selling to other players. You're straight vendoring that money. You're literally generating 300K an hour into the economy. And that's it's insane. And it's one of the reasons why we have the fatigue system on Horizon. It's just like you know that amount of free income generated into the economy by what we thought was probably going to be about like 1,000 players on launch is still really bad. And so we were like, yeah, no, that's gone. And then Treasure Hunter was another thing that we instantly were like, yeah, no. Wings Treasure Hunter is like 3 to 4 times calculate like math wise the actual like TH drop rate. So like if you had like a 5% base drop rate and you had TH4 on Wings, what it did instead of just manually auditing, so SEs, I'm sure everybody's seen the SE TH curves on Wings. What it did is it gave you extra roll chances instead of just putting you up a curve, and those extra roll chances instead just boosted the curve into insane levels. Like 5% ended up being like 18%, ended up being like 23% drops from like a 5% drop, which is, it's just insane. And that's not insane for like, should a 5% drop, like I'm not getting into that, should a, balance wise, should a 5% drop be maybe higher? That's insane of if you determine a 5% drop should be 5%, it being 23% because of TH is a little absurd. And the reason why that is absurd is because that just makes Thief absolutely necessary for everything you do no matter what. And so we wanted to get the original TH curves because TH1, depending on what you're doing, might not be like the end all be all, or TH2 over TH1, and that determination of whether you need to farm on Thief or whether you need to farm on something else may not be the end all be all, which it kind of wasn't on retail until TH like 5 and the proc system came out. And then, well,
isn't it like TH 18 now is the max you can get on retail?
14 with masters,
okay.
right?
All right.
Is it,
Yeah. So
I think so.
14 or 15?
I don't have Thief. Thief is legitimately one of the jobs in retail. I was just like, because it's really boring right now. You literally just stack all of the stuff necessary to sit there and wail on like a 1 damage thing until you proc the max TH that you want.
I've got a great Thief on retail, and I've hit 13 probably twice, and I think 14 once.
Yeah. And the curve, the math curve that's required once you start getting those higher TH levels for the next level to proc is just dumb. It's so dumb. Yeah.
No, that's crazy. So like talking about like all of the QA challenges that you faced and the problems that you were having, like being able to get people to actually test, because with my background, I completely understand. I get it. Like I said, video game QA forever. So with that being said, like, do you have any sort of like thoughts about the value of, or potentially like creating like a PTR or like an invite only test server for people to come in and
Yeah,
like test new content, like treasures that's coming out?
I guess I'm letting the cat out of the bag. We're gonna be doing a Horizon recruitment campaign soon-ish
Horizon what
for
campaign?
what?
One more time, what was it?
Horizon
Oh,
recruitment
okay.
campaign soon-ish. We are not recruiting balancers. We are hand picking them out of the community based off of the interactions that we've seen in the community. So if you're in the community and you watch this and you see one of the devs be messaging you about something, we might be asking you to be a balancer. I think we have a couple of names picked out that we're going to reach out to first, and then we're going to try and get to a certain amount of level. But testing is going to be another fun one where I'm pretty sure we're opening the floodgates and doing another testing campaign. We're probably we haven't really there's some internal development stuff where we might be ramping up a PTR realm for Treasures of Adargon. There are some things going on there. I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to get people's hopes up. To use like early development is what I would call it. But we are developing it, which is, I guess, news to people maybe.
Well, I mean, I figured that everybody knew that. So, like, I don't want to
I don't
interrupt
know.
and
Some
talk
people
about
are
this.
thinking that we're not working on it at all, but I'm like, dude, it's the next big thing. Of course, we're working on
Well,
treasures.
of course you are. So, like, is there any, like, I don't want you to spill the beans here, but is there any kind of, like, timeline for, like, when you guys are hoping to get that out?
Oh, I mean, there is one internally, but I'm not going to share it because
No, 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 of course.
There's no way that I'm going to publish any sort of ETA information. I think even for our major patches like 1.2 coming up, we probably won't put an ETA until it's done and ready, and then we're just going to surprise people because it was just like one of those things where we discovered with 1.1 where putting that date makes it so that we start getting into that like pre-launch grind where we were doing like 100 hours a week again, and that was just like for a couple of us were okay with it, like Frank and I and some of like the more admins, but like we had some devs who were like doing some sus things with their lives to try and like push development. And we were just like, nah, let's not put a 2D, like let's not put an ETA, just, and that's mainly because like we don't want like I have lost devs before on not on Horizon yet, thank God, where it becomes too real for them. It literally, they live, breathe developing private servers, and they burn out, and it's just one of those things where like, yeah, guys, it's like this is like when you join the team, I want this to be fun for you. I want you to, and that's why I liked the concept of Horizon so much. It's when you finally get past that ASB state and that junior dev state, and you're like a dev, you get to see our nice list of Era Plus things that we're working on, and you get to pick what you want, and you get to have your say. Once you've earned that point on our team, including balancers, you get to have your say in what happens on Horizon. And it's not saying we don't take community stuff, because it's quite obvious that we definitely take community feedback based off of some things that have already happened. But it's just that it's really trying to find a nice life balance for our developers to where they get to have the fun of coding and making things and not have a second job. And that's like the balance. And like trust me, when we have a professional QA person also on like the team, like we legitimately have someone who came on and is like, I'm a QA person professionally for this major company, like major game company. And I was like, fantastic. Let's talk with the testers, the lead test guys, and everybody internally, the devs, and let's try and find something that we're willing to agree to, which is just enough to have QA, just enough for us to make sure that we have some level of quality assurance, but yet not make it seem like we are working.
Right.
Like
I may or may not
so.
actually live with that person, but go on.
Yeah, so that's that. It's just that, we take their input very much to heart, because there's so much different things. Like I do sort of this kind of work for my job, but yet like I am a like not a project manager, because a project manager at my company is like super high up, but I manage the small teams that I do when we work on small projects. And the things that I wish I could do as a PM on Horizon, because there are things that I do professionally, there's no way you could, because it's just like, then it's a job. Hey, dude, you have to, every time you put in an MR, you got to go do X, Y, and Z, and you got to do things to this level, and you got to make sure that you're following this exact thing and flow, and you're putting in Jira tickets, and you're doing some sort of agile workflow, and you're making sure that we're showing, here are the things that we're doing on our waterfall board, or here's what we have in our backlog. You need to go, and that's the biggest thing that I guess I want to relay to you guys, is like, when you have bugs and things like that and issues, I wish as a PM I could be like, here's our bucket of issues, let's burn them down. But you can't, right? It's a volunteer project. I can suggest that. I can say, hey guys, our bugs are over 200. If people are interested, let's reel them in and burn them down. But the problem is I can't just go and be like, yo, you dev, this is your 10 issues, and burn them down. Like I could at work. Like at work, if I have my person that I'm working with, I can 100% be like, okay, cool. Here's our backlog. Here's our queue. Here's what you're good at. Bam, there's your things. What do you uncomfortable at that you want to learn on? Cool. Here's your 2 that fit that bucket, so that you start becoming a more well-rounded dev. And here's your lead to go talk to on those 2 issues, so that you make sure that you're getting trained properly and that we're taking care of those 2 things. Can't do that on Horizon. I wish I could, but at the same time, then it's like too much like a company, and I can't pay people. So it's one of those things where it's a very much balance between, we got to make things fun for people, and we have to make sure that we get things done. And we have some devs, thank the Lords, where they enjoy bug fixing. I don't. I think bug fixing is like the worst thing, because 90% of them are my fault. So I don't like going in and spending 30 hours on, the fact that I put an equal sign when it should have been, like a greater than sign or something
With
like
the
that,
quality.
which we've done,
Spoken like a true game dev, my friend. Spoken like I've been fighting against your type for the last.
Okay,
20
well, I mean,
years.
the biggest thing, the most hilarious thing to me is I play, so like 2 of the games that I love a lot outside of 11 is old school RuneScape and Apex Legends. And Apex Legends just had like this game breaking bug for the entire season, where audio just wasn't happening for players. And it's because they implemented one line of code, a single line of code for the entire season, was causing people to just not hear audio at all. And in a game where it's a multi-person shooter, that's probably really bad for the person not getting any audio. And so,
oh God,
go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of the one line of audio code on there, I wanted to actually bring up about the other challenges that you faced in the development and maintaining of the private server, and how you have overcome them. Because you talked about the burnout, the work-life balance, the quality assurance process, and that one line of code. I'm seeing if there's any other challenges that you've actually come across and how you overcame them.
Oh, dog, I don't want to talk about challenges every single step of the way. So I think we're the first. I don't know. So based on what I talk, if anybody in the community doesn't know, we have a really good working relationship with Eden, like a really good working relationship. Their entire staff is amazing, and we love them. And the entire community wouldn't be here without them, and multiple other private servers who've come before. Hurdles, literally everything. I think we're the first major Final Fantasy XI private server to be running on the Linux side. Everybody else uses Windows Server platform, and a lot of the problems that we've been having are solely because we're running on Linux, and they haven't been tested to any sort of like stress levels. And we ran into that at like 80 different steps. And I don't know how many times like I'm calling Zach, like not calling, but like messaging Zach Too Good and like the other Lansam boat devs, and being like, have you guys ever run into this before? And they're like, no. And they're like, this doesn't happen for any of our Windows people. And I'm like, well, it doesn't happen for me locally. And the reason why is because obviously I'm running my local test server where I code on Windows. And so a lot of the big hurdles that we have, especially in QA, is the fact that we have our coders and devs developing on like Windows platforms, and then our servers running on Linux. So it's just one of those things where it's just, when you swap operating systems like that, you run into a bunch of potential mishaps. And mishaps did we run into? And I don't want to get into all of them, but it was a ton, like a ton. And there are still ones that I think might be Linux issues. I have this deep rooted feeling in my gut that the black screen issues that plagued Horizon were primarily a factor of the fact that we're running on Linux. No other private server has ever run on Linux before. And this is completely just a hunch, no research whatsoever. But like we've done so many random code and packet improvements that have been in the private server community for like years, but no one else has had these issues, right? So Nasomi got to like 2K players. He was running off of Windows and they had zero black screen issues. And so it's just one of those things where like myself and Frank have this like troll thing where things happen and things break and we're just like, it's Linux, we don't know whether it's Linux because it was working locally. And so that was the big thing. And then it's all obviously like a huge step up. So we go from local, which is a single instance of the game, to our beta server, which is like 10 instances of the game. And then you go to our prod. Our live server runs 48 separate instances of the game. And that goes to how many players you can hold per instance and how many you can manage. And so the more you do, the more that you have, the more technically stable the server is. Because, if one instance goes down, that means only the zones on those instances are DCing. So, like, if lower Juno goes down because it's on its own instance, that's the only server in the game going down. Can we instance every single server, like every single zone in the game? Technically, yes. I don't have the money to pay for a server like that. I think it was like we scoped it out because we were like, man, that would be hilarious if I was to do, because we're like almost guaranteed sure that SE runs zone instances where every single like zone on however their server is running on its own separate thing.
So how do you determine which servers get their own private, or sorry, which zones get their own like server? Is it the higher capacity ones like dynamic?
Before we launched, we were just like guessing. Before we launched, we were like, okay, based off of knowledge of the game, what servers are going to have the most population. So what we did when we launched is we had a specialized instancing of the game for launch, which was literally every single starting zone, all of the Sandy zones, all of the Ronfair zones, King Rampart's Tomb, literally every single zone in those starting areas was on its own instance. Because when we launched, I think day one, when we hit the ground running, was like, what, 3.3K people? So I'm glad I did, because the technical limit of those zones is like 700 players a pop. Like the technical SE, I think server side limits, like even that SE has, I think if you have 700 people more in a zone, things start getting wonky. And I don't think our code base like Lansam yet has ways to do higher population numbers where they start like looping IDs in zones and other weird stuff. So we went with that, and we were like, okay, so after the first week, players are going to be like going towards Juno. So like, what of the Juno zones were that? And then, at the time, players didn't know it, but we knew that we had placed outpost warps in Juno. So we were like, well, when players are going to discover that, and when they start using it, it's going to be more of a hub. So we should cluster those zones. But that entire time we were recording data. So that entire time, spitting out to a log, we were recording every like hour or so the population counts of every zone in the game. And so based off of like the first month, we were like, okay, here's how we need to start clustering the game. And we did that repetitively for like 2-3 months until the population started spreading. And then we were like, okay, here's where we're going to go for now. And then we're going to do this again. When we launch TOAU, we're going to do the data, like we're going to make up what we think the instancing needs to be for TOAU. And then we're going to record data based off of what's actually there and re-instance the game, so to say.
So you dynamically change which ones are actually instanced.
Yeah, it's not really dynamically, because the server has to come down to change what instance they're on. It's pretty much just like a giant list. It's called a SQL database that states like where something's at, and we just change that to say, okay, these 3 zones are on this port instance, and then bam, when we open that port with the game server, it's like, okay, cool, that's those 3 zones. We can trust me when I say this. We can go into like 2 to 3 podcasts of just me talking technical server stuff. So
and it's super fascinating. I know there's other questions, but this one made me think of a question, and I apologize to Quetch, who was going up next. But my question is like, so you mentioned like the outpost warps that were in Geno, and people didn't know about them and stuff. Makes me think about the trees that we had to kill. How did you feel about that? Like, what are your thoughts? Did that go well? Like, was that what you expected? Like, how did that go?
Okay, so they were like, if anybody knew the actual event, ours were like 3 times easier before we nerfed them, like again live. Yeah. On actual retail, when they did that event, the trees had 3 times the amount of HP that we originally had on ours.
Really?
Yeah.
I spent 16 hours smacking a tree.
Me too. Jugner Forest for the win.
It was bad. We did our in-depth research when it came to those, and like, so it was split between the staff. We had Ophi, Crit, Frank, and I, and Ophi was like, well, since I'm coding this, I'm going to do how it was back in Era. And Frank, Crit, and I were like, no. Like, they're never going to like, the outposts are never going to be a thing if we do something like this. And so we nerfed them a bit more. We made it so that you didn't have to go talk to a Moogle and get because before you had to go talk to a Moogle and like level cap. What we did is we coded like a special damage modifier, which made it so that you could only do a maximum amount of damage on the trees instead, because we were like, if you're level like 60 and you want to come smack a mob for 20 hours, like, feel free, dog. Like, if that's what you want to do, like, feel free. And then like 3 weeks onto the server, we secretly nerfed them. Like, we were like, no, it wasn't like this. It was, I don't know, like a month or two. I'd have to go back and look at the logs. At some point, we did come back in and secretly reduce the HP of the mobs again. We were just like, okay, we took the server down for update and maintenances, and we were like, okay, players are starting.
What drove that decision to lower it? Because people weren't killing them, or what?
The 3 remaining ones in like Bucidine, Yatunga, and is it Altepa? Those ones had like 500,000 HP.
Wow.
Oh, is the HP scale depending upon the zone?
Based off of what we had seen with like server stability, like zone stability at the time, and player focus and players willing to like sit there and do it. So the SE, the ones back in the day, it was actually a bug on Horizon that we just decided to stick with because we realized people legitimately weren't going to be able to kill these things because they weren't like SE released them, and since it was a part of an event, players went and did them in like hundreds. Like, they had like 400 to 500 people on these trees on like retail. So that's what we expected, is once people saw them, we expected people to really be able to get like large swaths of players to just like destroy these trees. We had like, I think at max like 120, so like a third of the people that we expected to be whapping on these trees. So it took like a time. And so based off of like, so back to the bug. The bug was that at SE's one, if you failed and the tree killed you, it would regen its HP back to 100. But on Horizon, they just stayed there. And so we were like, Crit and I were like, yeah, let's just not fix it. Like, if players want to go spend 4 hours on a tree, go party and do regular game things, this seems reasonable to me. If you have to sit there and kill a tree for 20 hours, at least let them like go take a break and like pee. Like, we're not fucking killing Pandemonium Morden or something stupid like that.
Yeah, when we killed the one with DA in Jugner, I don't know if you remember this, but you actually came out because the zone R0'd.
Yeah, and I
had to reset it to its health. But I wanted to ask, like, so you gave us a buff for a little while that made us kick the shit out of this thing. Like,
okay, yeah. So
what was that all about?
So there are two. So if everybody doesn't know, Ovi retired. So there's 3 people with like what's called an admin account, which is like the ability to use what's called an execute command. So an execute command is Frank, Crit, and I being able to go into the game and like legitimately manually type in code to the server to fix things. Like, it's like one of the most powerful things in the game. I can go to Altepa, see that King like Vinegar like screwed up due to like a variable that is unsettable any other way, and I can legitimately send code to the server, say, hey, set this up so that this mob is fixed. And so on the trees is a variable that states for them to be under a special defensive state, which makes it so that they only take a certain amount of damage based off of the number that state is set to. And so what I did is I just changed the number of that state using an execute command, so that players kick the shit out of it for like
That's
5
awesome.
minutes.
So were you standing there watching and seeing, like waiting till we got to a certain point and turned it off, or did you just like turn it on for a certain amount of time?
I turned it on for like 5 minutes because here's the thing about it. So Ophi was a little bit hardcore on some of the things that she wanted to do. Like she was just like, nah, fuck them. Like let them sit there for like 40 hours. And so like Crit and I were sitting there like, okay, let's see what happens when we go and poke it and turn it on to that, because the problem is like we would have to like completely wipe the beta server to like reset those mobs because of how their variables are set. Because once you kill them once, like how outposts are unlocked means like all the variables have to be set correctly, and it's just really annoying to go and like reset beta to a point to where you can respawn the trees safely without breaking the entire server. So we were just like, okay, let's like change the number really quick and see what happens. And holy shit, did like things just like go wackadoodle really quickly. So
yeah, we turned it down like
I took it from 1 to 2, and it was like everybody's doing like 80 damage to it, and I'm just like, nope, like sorry guys, like
had it to 20,
like too much. So
it was at 25% server,
and it
down,
went to like 20%
up.
in like 5 minutes too.
It was
just like, well,
so many people were like, I'm done. I was like, no, come on, hey, clip DA's stream, send it to the GMs. We got proof where it was. Let's fix it.
Yeah, so like the big reason, like the big reason why we did that, because besides such the fact that it was like an actual event that SE did to unlock them, was we wanted like this big community effort to like get the thing, which outpost warps are some of the most powerful things in the game. Like it really unlocks movement like once you've done it. And so we wanted this big community thing where the community legitimately had to get together and, I'm not going to say suffer, but like actually put in effort together to do something, because we wanted it to like, and there might be more things like this in the future, because it really is like big. Like there's no link shell walls. Like you had people from like Wings who hated each other whapping on the same mob and being like, we can do this together. And I think that's quintessential like 11, right? It's more about the community and like sure, there's different end-game link shells at the time, or building up end-game link shells, but they're all there because they're hey, we're getting outposts, like this is it, especially like people were like, oh, this is just part of the Christmas event, and then it got out like a week or two into the server where someone like looked up the fact like, wait, what the heck are these mobs? And they're like, oh wait, because people were like, for like the first week, people were like, oh wait, why can't I outpost? And then people didn't realize that event was a thing for like a week and a half into the server, and we were just all sitting there like tee-hee. And some person looked it up, like, what are these trends? And they're like, oh my god, this is like how they unlocked outpost warps. And then once it was out, there was fucking a spreadsheet, and people were fucking like coordinating like culling efforts. People were getting like axes and just going out there to shop. It was good. Yeah, man, it was really good.
I remember that.
Scheduling link shell events for people to show up to with other link shells, so that we had enough people to actually kill them. Like I said, I spent 18 hours smacking those trees.
It was good, man. I definitely sat there and smacked them a couple times. I think I was still incognito at the time, but I was there smacking along with the group. So
that's cool. Awesome. You guys were there at that Jugner. So I actually showed up right after, and somebody was like, oh, Aerec came and unlocked the mob and let us just wail on it. I got there, it was like 20-something%, and I'm back to doing 1 damage. I'm like, I missed the fun stuff.
I missed the fun.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a couple of fun ones. I think when the first we had a couple of. So we have some fun things on like so when certain mobs are engaged, it sends like messages out to like the GMs and staff if we're online so that we can like see it. We had those for the trees, and I remember the first time one was engaged and like walking up when there was like 10 people thinking they can go in with like a single alliance, and they just got
decimated.
Decimated. It was hilarious. I was just like, yep, no. If you think we're gonna put in outpost warps and have a single alliance and lock them, you wrong, man.
You wrong.
Check your tone when you're talking about boy all wrong.
So like with the outpost thing, like what was the impetus behind moving the Bastock OP guy behind the president's office out of the mines? Like what was the thought process there? Conrad, I
Like
think
out
it
of
was.
Bustock Mines. Well, in Era it was in Metalworks, and so we were thinking, well, okay, so it was like a couple of folds. It's like, how can you make being Winderstian and Sandorian slightly better than Bestock? Because when everything's in mines, there's no qualms. If you don't care about nation, like if you didn't care about like the fact that you were a Sandorian or the fact that you were a Winderstian, like if that wasn't like something for you aesthetically, and you were just there to metagame, Bestock is like that, right? You have Auction House, you have Conquest, you have Outpost Warps all within like 15 seconds of each other. There's no other choice. And then especially when, you know, you have the Moghouse exit quest done, you're all over Bestock and like no problem whatsoever. There's no questions asked. The layout of Bestock at the time was just better. Like than either other nation. And so, in an effort to be more era-like, we moved them further away from their current retail positions. And in the secret effort of, well, we wanted Era to really feel, and so we wanted people in Juno because like everybody was in Juno, like back in the day. Juno was the spot.
Of course.
And so we had already knew that we had placed outpost warps there. And so in an effort to make the nation outpost warps less desirable to use, like to be in your nation, to be in Juno, to be with the rest of the community, we nerfed them a little bit. We were like, okay, let's make them a little worse. Let's time them. So we timed Bestock at the worst and at its best. So we were like, we had someone run the Bestock outpost warp from the closest smog house to the outpost warp, and we did this for all the nations. And we put it in a place to where it's equivalent at its worst to the other nations. At least at the time, I don't know. I'd have to go back to Ophi's tracking. Ophi and Frank did runs testing where they were at. And the fact that we knew once again that we had placed an outpost warp NPC in Lower Juno, because it was only at Lower Juno at the time, but then we had all the black screen issues, so we added them additionally to Upper and Port. That was just going to be better. Like the Lower Juno one is like just better than all of them. Even if the stock one was in its regular place, it's better. But we wanted to make it really better.
I just want you to know that the Bestock one, even though it's a slight nerf, it's actually an inadvertent nerf to Thief, because I'll flee and I still have to wait for the stupid elevator before my flee is worn off.
It's okay.
Then no matter what,
it's okay. Bastockians cringe. Go, everybody join Windurst and get. Here's the thing:
if you want to flee all the way to where I'm going,
if you like being a professional red mage, let me just say, let Wendy win for 1 week, and I'm sure all of the red mages on the server will love you. So.
Sir, we do not have any Windhurst representation in this podcast, and I'd appreciate.
I'm Windurst on my main character.
Oh, here it is.
So I guess you technically do.
There's no men's representation here.
Comments.
Okay, you want to know the reason why I went Windurst though? Okay, so I went Windurst because legitimately I have never, ever, even on retail, ever done Windurst missions. Ever. I have never to this day done it. And I was just like, you know what? If this is going to be the last hurrah, I might as well do it once. So here we are. I was just like, okay, let's do it.
So while it may seem like it was a nerf sort of to like move Conrad to where he is, I mean, do you realize that it was an inadvertent buff to anyone doing COP missions?
Oh, I guess so.
Sid is
I
right
mean,
there. Sid is
Oh,
right
I mean, not
Sid.
really. I mean,
on,
I guess
like
it's
12
nice.
steps
I mean,
away.
here's the thing: if we had left it in mines, it's just like a warp away. I mean, that's
No, you're right.
that's
Yeah,
such
I know.
binary.
Just
I mean,
saying.
here's the thing. Yeah.
Stock for life, baby.
So we've got a few more like in-game questions to touch on, and I just wanted to ask specifically about treasures. So, so a little bit back on the technical side, and then we'll jump more into in-game. You mentioned how you've got a lot of the technical server side stuff going on. When you're looking forward to a next expansion, I don't know private server like what already exists and what you want to be drawing from, versus what like needs to be made. So like what are some of the general challenges that you are facing like looking forward to the next expansion or a next expansion?
Everything. The The open source Final Fantasy 11, and when I say open source, there's a reason for that. The open source Final Fantasy 11 private server repo, like the code base, is largely incomplete, and that's because the reason why whenever like a server does really well and they have a good dev team, they're typically closed source, and that's not to fault on them. That is not to fault on them. Eden is closed sourced right now, and like I said, they have the best treasures of Ottergon so far, right? They are going open source soon, and I can't tell you the amount of benefit the entire, not just Horizon, the entire community gets. And we have an internal bet, like myself and the Eden team have made a joke that you guys are going to go open source, and I guarantee like a week later there's going to be an announcement about a new like Treasures of Ottergon like full era server starting up.
Oh my gosh.
And the reason is they're getting, someone's getting presented with like a silver platter, you know. But it's just largely incomplete because you have this fragmented community where everybody just wants to be their own thing, and that's why we have ASB, which is like if you play on Horizon, the things we dev for Horizon to complete it will be there in ASB, and there will be there in LSB because we want to be there on the community. So like the only things you won't see as like a person of the community code wise is our Era Plus stuff. Everything else that is Era, we push to the open source repos so that other people don't have to spend years redeveloping these things. Like we left Wings, and the first 4 months of our development for Horizon was recoding all of the bullshit Era stuff that we had done on Wings on a new code base. Like it was, let me just go rewrite COP all over again because we have a brand new code base to rewrite. And let me just go redo Zilla art. Let me go redo H&M Luas. Let me just go redo all of the AI that we redid on Wings for Land Sandboat, which is our completely different source code because they've separated. Like the big problem is like there's petty infighting between like server owners and stuff like that where people just get so fed up with each other that they don't like code sharing anymore, and the community kind of gets fucked for it. Like I guarantee if at this point, if we had gotten together back when Nozomi was big and decided that like, you know, enough's enough, and DSP, because it was, I think it was Darkstar going into Topaz at the time, had gotten together and being like, okay guys, this is it, let's all build onto this thing, we'd be in like deep Wings of the Goddess, like things being like juicy by now. But the problem is we're on Land Sandboat where there's been infighting in the community for years, and we're redeveloping TOAU for like the 4th time. So like we have the missions done, but those are just like the cutscenes and talking to the NPCs. That doesn't include the actual mobs in them and fighting them. So guess what we're having to do? Go back in them and code all of the mob skills, code the magic, code the AI, and all of the stuff that's done like 10 times. We did it on Wings. Guess what? We're pulling all of our Wings work and going like so that's like a big step is you know, you get into the heads of people, and there's a community Final Fantasy 11 private server Discord that you can go to, talk with amazing people like Thomas, Zach, the head people of LSB, people from Eden, people from all the private servers. I can tell you right now the community is more coming together than we ever have. And like I said to them, if you guys are interested in the stuff that we've done Era Plus, I'm not going to give you our code, but I'll damn make sure that I teach you how to do what we did, and so that you don't have to repeat the effort all the way, because that's fair to you, the community people, but it's also fair to the people playing on my server where, you know, I'm not giving someone, you know, potentially an advantage because I'm handing them how something works. And so I think that's the big thing is I can't tell you how much of a blank slate TOAU really is. We're dealing with it's old. It hasn't been touched. Clay Wars, thank God, done literally almost every mission in the game. But that's just the interactions where you're talking to the NPCs and getting the cutscenes. That's not like the mobs and the missions or items or other stuff like the events. And as we know, Treasures of Adergon was the event expansion. You know, it was so many different events for you to do outside of like what made FF11 great, which is like the H&M system and the NM system and the mobs and the quests and the zones and the design. and
Like the
it's.
invading of all zombie stuff, like where they come in and they.
I mean,
have
I'm
to
going to tell
fight
you
for
this.
it.
I'm going to tell the community this right now. As I have a hard requirement for Horizon, and like I said, I think during dev blog like 5 or 6 that we had changed our mindset from like dropping TOAU all at once, one for our own sanity and two for your sanity, right? If we actually devved all of TOAU and just released it at once, the players would have so much to do. Like you have how many different things to choose for to use your assault ID tag on at one time, right? Regular assaults, you have Nigel IO, you have salvage that you got to save up for. Releasing all of 2AU at literally in a single block would overwhelm players because there's just like, I want to do these things, but I'm now picking and choosing between doing regular assaults and salvage to gear up and Nigel to get my key. And so we were like, well, why don't we mirror more of SE and kind of drop 2AU phases where so players are like given things, one, TOAU because it's really good, and two, make it more realistic to how it was, and so that like, okay, I'm gonna have the time to spend my assault ID tags to get up in rank and save up ID tags for when Nigel's coming because I'm already getting all of my assault items, so I don't have to worry about saving up for my shiv chain and saving up for my salvage tags and getting my Nigel gear all at the exact same time. New players will like later on in the server life, but like the majority of players won't have to like screw with stuff like that. And so like I said to that's internal development team that our TAU hard drops are besieged. Obviously like base Nigel, which is like NM, H&M, missions, quests, jobs is like the big one. Holy crap, I can't tell you how bad of a state Puppet Master's in right now.
All right. So the next question that we have for you is, we're going to take it away from the end game a little bit, and
boy.
we were kind of curious, and I know that a lot of people in the community are also curious. But what is your or the team's like method for monitoring like content quality for people like in the mid range, like players that aren't 75? Like, how are you like let's say like 30 through 65, I guess, like how are you monitoring that content? Like what does that process look like?
Like, are we talking like missions or like quality of play? That's I
Um,
guess that's a little hard one to like poke
no,
at.
that's fair. I mean, missions are missions, and they are what people expect. But like, I guess like the everything else that isn't really missions, or I mean, maybe anything that's capped. I guess like I mean, at those levels, I guess.
I
Like, how are you
mean,
monitoring that?
yeah, I mean, there's tons. There's one community feedback. There's developer insight. Like we legitimately have channels where we post like recordings of how we've done content. Like so, when I did like change the Promathia missions and missions and stuff like that, like we like record them and post them, and people like review them internally. So it's like one of those things where was this too easy? Was this too hard? It was really kind of hard to gauge, especially for the mid to regular community. We did have a version of like Change of Promathia and some other missions that were like dumb hard. Um and the balance team was like there's no way you could feasibly release stuff like this. Um because like I said, the people we have on the balance team are like Jimmy and some of like the most knowledgeable people on the server, and they were struggling to figure out how to deal with things and progress, and so we had to like not too close to launch, like dial things back. And I think we over dialed things back based off of like what my current opinion is. Um, and will I feel bad when I like buff all the missions and make them harder? No, but that's because I also know what other things are coming at the same time. Um,
That's fair. So you're talking about things like the
like missions and quests and like 2-3 and promies and memets and like just basic middle game events for people to do, maybe things like garrison, other events that we may or may not be adding to give people who aren't in game things to do outside of leveling, outside of maybe trying to find gil, or maybe trying to find earn gil in different ways. Because I think one of the true potentials of Final Fantasy XI is the fact that we really do have a lot of big horizontal progression when it comes to items. So you really can do a lot of cool things with events based around level caps. And I think while in missions and stuff like that, that's really cool. But SE really didn't do a lot of like secondary events based off of like level caps.
Mhm.
So like, what can we have more difficult or more fun things to go do? But the level cap's 40, the level cap's 60, because that changes a lot about the game. That maybe rewards things like more money items or in-game items. That's constantly on our mind, and like we said before, we wanted to kind of give a really good experience when it came to partying, because statistically, 80% of your 11 experience is spent EXP, trying to get EXP, trying to merit, trying to do things like that. So a lot of what we are focusing on is watching players as they expand it out and being like, okay, people are hitting like really bad waves in like the 40s. Let's Aerec plus some camps. Let's change some things up. Um, um, the Aerec plus Black Mage camps were a smash that I never thought they would be, and players definitely found their own strategy into doing them, which was the double summoner for Black Mage method. Never we tested that with legitimately 2 regular skill chainers, and Black Mage is blowing it up. That's how it was tested and developed. And players came out and blew my mind. I didn't think of that. And it was great. I love it. It's something that we completely wholeheartedly like love. So it's a new way for Black Mages and summoners to level. So it was really fun there. And so that was a lot of what we were doing. Is people, I like to call them rats. We had staff going out there who are really anonymous, who, you guys might not even know their staff, literally in regular parties, just talking to people and getting feedback based off of a non-staff interaction. I think the cleanest feedback we get isn't from the main Discord, where players know they're directly trying to talk to us via like the suggestions channel. It's us in parties where they don't know that I'm a Horizon staff and I'm just talking the shit. There are still parties I get into this day, especially in like the low levels in like the 30s and 40s, where people don't know who my character is.
Mhm.
And some of the best feedback for the game we get is when I talk to people in those parties. Because when people talk to me, they're really trying to make a point and get really direct about like the specifics on what they feel is needing. But a lot of the times, that's not what we're looking for. Like people who are knowledgeable at the game come to us with like, you need to change X and it needs to be exactly Y. But a lot of those times those suggestions aren't really feasible, they don't fit, or they're just no offense to people, sometimes just really wrong, like, and it's really easy to prove that they're wrong. um but there's a lot of times where we do get feedback to where it's more of like the generalized feedback, which is like, I'm level 30 and I'm leveling my first sub job right now, but I wanted to level more before I completed my sub job, but I found it was really hard to get past this like hurdle of getting past like this level in this space, and here's where I was like, I was having trouble getting some gil here to gear up enough to where a party would want me, and I'm having trouble getting from like 40 to 44 because people aren't wanting to like sync there, and I don't really have the gear to keep syncing down because I don't have the gear, and stuff like that's fantastic, because it's like, okay, so for like a new player experience, they have troubles here because of these specific things, but there are ways to fix that. And so that's the stuff that I love the most, is just because there's a lot of times where people are angry feedbacking, which is not something we rebound very well off of. And I have my faults where I get heated too, because like I said, some of us spend way too much fucking time developing and working on the server to where people come in and they just angrily try and shit on what we do, and it's just like, I have bad moments, and I rebound off that, where I'm just like, okay, I've dealt with like 8 GM tickets where some guy just threatened to like cut off my head because we banned him, and some like other person's threatening to sue us, and I'm trying to help this new guy literally just get a mission variable set so he can go fucking like do 1-3, and then you just have some end game hardcore player like just reaming on the server in chat, and so I have to go like moderate the chat at the same time, and it's just like it's a lot for people. And so some of the most real moments that we have when it comes to feedback is just in a party with someone, and we were just sitting there talking like this, where it's some of the best feedback that we get is just sitting here talking on a real moment where it's cool and everybody's chill and we're just, we're talking, we're brainstorming, and that's that.
You ever go incognito mode and Gelspa Outpost at all?
Oh, jeez.
I think I did on, like I said, I was Winders, so not for a while. I did once I was done with a couple of jobs in Winders, make it a point to level in like Valkyrim side so that I would interact with more players on that side. Which is why I never form my own party. Like, so after I like rushed to 75 on my red mage, it's like when I was making the parties, just trying to get it done on like all the jobs that I do now, I will on purposely never make a party because I just like to sit there with my flag up and let people invite me so that I can just interact with random players, I don't static with anybody. I like if when my friends say, dude, let's go party, I'm like, okay. But I will never go out and make a party. I'll just sit there with my flag up and just wait to take parties because, like I said, I really like the fact that I can just go out and interact with regular people and just talk to them and try and get feedback without letting like if it's obvious that they don't know who I am, I sit there and talk. But then there's a lot of times where someone's like 5 minutes into the party, oh my god, dude, can you give me like a Kraken Club? And I'm like, no, I can't give you a Kraken Club.
I'll be perfectly honest. I don't even know what your playing name is.
It's
like,
okay. I'm not
share
gonna say.
character.
I'm
He's
not gonna say it
and
here.
we
I
don't
have
know
no
about
I'm not
idea
gonna
what it is.
say it
I'm
here
saying,
if
but
you-
I stream
you know
the
who-
server.
If you know who I am, I used to like if you go find my Twitch channel and you can easily see who I was. Pretty much no one knew who I was for like the first week and a half, and then one of my best friends like let it out, and then everybody just the DMs, the tells started to come in, and then I was like, well, okay, so it's out. So I guess I'm gonna stream a bit because I really do. Like I said, I enjoy streaming because it gives me a very similar avenue for talking to people. People who come into like my Twitch stream when I'm streaming the game come into chat about like the general state of the game, and it's a more relaxed environment because I'm sitting there chilling. I'm typically like in an EXP party or doing like more chill things, and it's never about development. It's always about just talking what things can be better, what things are wrong, and let's just talk. Let's hang out instead of seeing me as Aerec the dev, where you're trying to like push a point hardcore. It's more about Aerec that I'm doing something else. So let's talk more relaxed. I think that's definitely the better way to do it. So
It's like you
That's-
said, you're gonna get a more real response in that environment than
oh
you're
yeah,
gonna
like
anywhere else.
I'll almost never respond, or I try not to anymore, to like someone coming into the Discord and just flaming and just being angry because there's never going to be a good outcome from a conversation where someone's obviously angry, right? When someone's coming in and screaming and flaming about something in the Discord, and if that's their suggestion, they're saying, "Why are you doing this?" There's never going to be a positive outcome from that because they're obviously angry. They're obviously very passionate and angry about being passionate. And so it's just better to just move on because when you get a bunch of relaxed people in a room, it's much easier to like talk and chill about stuff. But then you still get sometimes the people who are like, I know this and you're just wrong. And a lot of the times it's just, getting, and we have those, we have those people who are just like, I've been playing for 20 years as well, and you're just wrong about this. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm wrong about this, but
So, like, speaking of people that are angry and passionate, you mentioned that you are a level 75 red mage.
yes.
There's a lot of people that are very vocal and very upset in the red mage community. I'm going to give you a platform to set the record straight if you're interested.
Oh boy.
I'm curious, and I know that a lot of red mages are curious. What is the impetus behind the? Oh, my light turned on. What the hell just happened? Hold on. That's so weird. Hold on.
That was spooky.
That was the Lord
was
telling you
kinda
not to
creepy.
ask that damn question.
Oh dang.
No, it's saying this question's illuminating.
Awful. Sorry about that. With my pajamas on. So I'll start over again. So I'm gonna start that the whole way so that we can get the edit. So speaking of people that are passionate and angry, you said that you're a level 75 red mage.
Yeah.
That community is up in arms about the changes that have been made to their class. And I'm going to give you the chance to set the record straight here once and for all with a lot of those folks. What is the impetus behind those changes? Is there a specific reason? Do you feel that red mage is innately too powerful?
Oh yeah.
Specifically
100%.
talking about like the merit points with convert time. Like that's a hot ticket item right now. I know that you're involved in a lot
Oh
of
boy.
conversations about
Oh
that.
boy,
I
oh
know,
boy, oh boy.
I know. And I'm in RFK with some of those very vocal members. So I'm going to give you your chance now. Like speak to it. Like tell the community why why the red mage has
Okay.
been hamstrung.
So we're gonna get into this, and so you have two. I guess you have one group of people who are saying why don't you, instead of nerfing a job, take every job up to that job's level?
Mhm.
Well, then we're rewriting the entire game to inherently make it more difficult. The problem with Red Mage is it was insanely good at everything it did in Era. It was, and I'm not. It is proven to a point where Red Mage was legitimately until a point the best tank in the game, the best healer in the game, the best technical support in the game besides Bard,
Mhm.
and a really, really good damage dealer if you geared properly for it and that's what you were doing. It was behind Black Mage by a slight point, and that was only the fact that like you only had access to T3s. The problem with bringing every player class or job up to that is the fact that you now have players that are insanely powerful on a level, like on an equal playing foot. And so now all of everything else in the game now has to take an adjustment to that. One, like, and I hate to use this as an excuse, we are like I said, a volunteer dev team, and for ease, it's better for us to bring a couple of jobs down so we don't have to completely go out and literally change everything about the game to just make it so that we bring every player up. Two, the quintessential desire that we had for Horizon was we wanted to do everything, have it 75 cap, have it be as horizontally progressive as possible. By bringing some jobs down to where we could like start at least on a back foot, it means that going into things like 2EU, Wings of the Goddess, Abyssia Part 1, all of these things where we're trying to rework how balance is, you don't have to deal with the fact that you just have overpowered jobs. And now, okay, we're bringing in Pup, Blue, and Corsair, and now we have to make sure that they are the same broken level that every other job is, because we've made them broken because Red Mage was good. And Red Mage was good. There's a reason why you didn't bring White Mage to experience parties, is because there's no reason to. Why would you ever, in any sort of mindset, bring a White Mage over a Red Mage to an experience party unless you were the White Mage? There wasn't a reason to. And so we had to sit back and look at different aspects of the game and say, well, we should start by bringing things down to a level so that things are easier to balance later on, and so that we can easily make other jobs more desirable to have in states. You can make White Mage more desirable by taking Red Mage down a notch, instead of being like, okay, what the hell do I have to do to Red Mage to buff it to make it as good as Red Mage? Well, if I give it everything it got in the game, including like Solus and all of those other things, guess what? You still don't want White Mage over Red Mage, because guess what? Red Mage has haste and refresh, everything on best timers. It's never running out of MP on in EXP parties of anything, and it's still the White Mage, the healer class of the game, like the quintessential healer, is still worse at Red Mage than EXP healing. Like it's worse. And so it's just like, how much do you have to do these other jobs to bring them up and buff them? And it got to a point where it was just like, well, then what do jobs have to look forward to besides completely custom things when we release expansion packs, right? If we have to buff White Mage so much when we're like considering giving it literally everything it ever got in the course of the game just to give it some sort of competitive like line with Red Mage, I don't think it's a problem with White Mage. I think it's a problem maybe with Red Mage. And that's me coming from someone who used to play Red Mage, because I would be able to go to an event, tank, completely solo tank an endgame Grand Worm until with legitimately only a Bard. It was me and a Bard there until everybody else got there. I was tanking it. Then a Paladin would take over and I'd swap to being the best healer in the main party. And then when it got to damage dealing, if we were good enough, which we were, I was also throwing out nukes. it's really good, and it was really, really good. And the point of what we did with Red Mage was not to kill the job. It was to make it so that other jobs actually made sense to play and to have in your compositions and events and stuff like that. Because if you're low manning things, the only time you'd really give a crap about bringing a white mage is if you're doing something that required elemental resistances. If you didn't need that, then your white mage is in the dumpster. If you're a low man dynamics link shell that takes two parties, maybe like one or two extra, you shouldn't take a white mage. Why would you ever take a white mage? You shouldn't. There's no reason to. There's no reason to take a white mage on H&Ms besides the Grand Worms. Like, white mage didn't have a spot. You know what it does now? It has a better spot because red mages can't just power heal everything through infinite mana. And so white mages, which have efficient mana, can now compete with red mage with a little bit of, guess what, a red mage buddy refreshing them, or a summoner refreshing them. Summoner has way more places than it did before because we gave it legitimately one blood pact, which was Refreshka. Like,
Yeah, no, I love it.
and
Thank you for doing that, by the way.
the
Thank
best thing about it is red mage is still better at refreshing because Refreshka is negative MP for the summoner. Everything summoner does is negative mana. Everything it does. Nothing that summoner does is MP efficient. You know what everything red mage does is? It's MP efficient still. Convert is legitimately just on a longer cooldown. We did a crap ton of math. Like, trust me when I say this. I think like weeks of math when we decided to actually take things down instead of bring things up to be like, okay, what is realistic? Trust me when I say this. We had refresh at 60 MP a cost, and I think convert at 15-minute cooldown, and our best red mages were still doing things perfectly fine.
Wow.
And so we were like, but when we were doing that, and we got the feedback from, so we got, like I said, the balance team was balancing, and then what we did was we got feedback from testers who may not be the best players ever to go play that job. They were like, this is harder than I expected by a metric shit ton. We were like, okay, let's dial this back a bit to a place where we're comfortable with putting red mage at, and that's where it is. And the point I would like to remind people is we are in Chains of Promathia.
Yeah, and so that kind of like leads into my next question that I thought of. So like, as the the promise of Horizon is that we're never going past 75, right? Like it's going to be 75 throughout all of the expansions. So it kind of leads into my next question, which is, so as we get into these further expansions, and we're talking about Ergon, and then whatever the next one, Wings, whatever the next ones are. As like the natural progression on retail would go, where every class would be leveling up and getting these new abilities, is the intention or the plan for Horizon's future to still include those abilities for those classes?
Yeah, I can't say if they're going to be in the same state that they were, but we plan to include things as they typically would have. There are some far out of era things that we're like, maybe not, like Stymie and other like the second 1 hours and stuff like that that really don't make sense period at all. Like, let's give War its new 1 hour, right? Let's give War the ability to 100% double attack and 100% crit. That's going to balance things. No. When it comes to things, we have plans for what we're going to do. We're going to look at everything. We have plans to do major things for every expansion pack, like Treasures of Ottergon. I'm sure the more knowledgeable people know what happens when Treasures comes for every single job in the game, and that's Group 2 merits, right?
Yeah, right.
And so it's just one of those things where, we plan on implementing those major concepts. Do we plan on looking at them and balancing them like we did for launch? Yeah, of course. Like, there's no way we're just going to like release them just because, just as is, when we've done so much work to try and make things leveling playing fields for what those jobs are supposed to be in their roles. So
of course. So, but like, as like we get further in, and like those things were supposed to become available for those classes, and without saying too much, obviously I'm not asking you to say things that you can't, but when it comes time for those, is there some new like created quests that you're going to have that we get those things, or is it just like day one we log in to the expansion where we're supposed to get those things, and since we can't move past 75, am I just going to have them, or like how am I going to acquire those new abilities?
So that's I would love for new stuff like that to be locked behind quests, but that is a client issue
Sure.
that I'm sure I could solve at a point. I don't know. And in all technical terms, when SE did it, you just got them. So at minimum,
Okay.
it's going to be that. At more, obviously, like I think I've said I've planned on this before, like the Thief Neck quest for your TH+1.
Mm-hmm.
I plan on doing that for a lot of other things. It was just, one of those time frames, and that was all balancing. People were like, "Why didn't you do the server job?" And I'm like, "Well, that's because it was balanced around the fact that Thief sucked because you had to always dual wield a single weapon in the game, and putting it on something that didn't make you lose your TP at least will make Thief fun to play again, especially in events where you want to be able to burn your TP."
So that was
Um,
the reasoning behind changing it to a neck piece, taking it away from the thief's knife.
yeah. The main
Um,
reasoning why is the fact that like if you're doing any sort of event that involves TH while you're trying to melee and also do like DD and stuff like that, like okay, screw my TP, I have to use this awful, awful weapon, and I'm
yeah.
locked into that for literally everything. So we're like, well, is this going to break the game by giving them the ability to like put this on something that doesn't like lose their TP? And we're like, yeah, okay, cool, well, done.
Yeah,
Send off.
I love it. I've got a
Checking
quick
the box.
toggle that just puts my neck and my
Yeah, that's it.
my relic hands on, and I'm good to
You
go.
literally put it on once, ensure that you hit, GG, hits over. That's it. And you swap back to whatever you want. So literally, I put it on, engage the mom, hit, and then you swap it off, and then bam, you're good
So
to use whatever equipment that you want.
there's server like that conspiracy theories, and maybe you can put these to bed concerning Thief. I know
Mm-hmm.
that my LS specifically subscribes to a few of these. Let's say that we're fighting something, and we
Okay.
have TH4 in the party, right?
Yep.
So the Thief
Mm-hmm.
comes in and chucks his boomerang at it. If that Thief then goes outside of the 30 Yalm range, does TH drop off?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So
The
then the
only
next
thing,
question.
the only thing that makes TH drop off of mob is if it goes idle.
So not even if the thief dies. If the thief
Correct.
applies TH4 and then the thief dies, the mob still has TH4.
Yeah. Until
Okay.
that mob goes white, it should still have TH4 on it.
Awesome. Well,
At
I
least,
think
at
that's
least
gonna
to my
put a lot
current,
of things to
and then
bed.
until my current understanding of it, yes, it is a local. It is once you put it on there, the mob has a VAR of the highest TH that's been applied to it, and the only time that VAR is wiped is when, it's, enmity container is wiped, which the only time that happens is idle, despawn, and death, and those sort of things. So.
So like if you're fighting, let's say like Jormungand, for example, and like I've noticed
And
that
yeah, and you
sometimes.
die, and the thief dies. You don't have to worry about raising them up at 1% to try and hit it one more time. You should have,
Hey, what were you watching our last one? What are you doing? What are you talking about here? Come on, Eric. Come on. Were you watching the last one, buddy?
I watch a lot of H&Ms.
That
It
was
doesn't
last
matter.
night. That was last night.
My lane shell doesn't do H&Ms, but I definitely make sure to watch them. So
We had 3 TH deaths, and they made sure to re-raise a new thief or get a thief up
I
just to
mean,
put it on.
if you guys want to confirm with me, feel free to DM me next time you go out, and we'll
Sure.
experiment and make sure it happens. I'll
Okay.
be there and confirm it for that's
That's
an easy confirm.
that's awesome. That is so
Because
great to hear.
that's our TH is mirrored to ASB. We have not done anything besides the neck piece to TH, so it should that's a completely era implementation of
Okay.
TH. So.
Rip.
Well, I mean, besides, have we changed some TH values on things? Yes, but how TH works system wise, outside of like drop rates,
And is it
shouldn't be changed.
and it's just getting on the aggro table, right? Like if I chuck a boomerang and I miss, I'm still on the aggro table and the TH is
Yeah,
applied?
whiffs. Well, yeah. So we ensured that by like even if you miss with like a ranged attack or anything like that, you apply one enmity just to make sure. And that's because we got into conspiracy theories on wings where we were like we didn't really know if it like as the dev team we were like is this applying, we don't really know, so we made sure on Horizon that it 100% misses whiffs 100% apply, including AoE spells like the Horde Lullabies and the Sleep Guz also mass apply TH.
Awesome.
Love
Oh,
knowing
that's
that.
great. That's great to know. Like I honestly I think that the community now, anybody who's
I
watching
have
knows about that.
confirmed 100% that Horde Lullaby and Sleep Go like Thief / Black Mage Sleep / Bard strats 100% work.
Wow,
Yep.
that is big, and I think that a lot of people will love to hear that. So we were talking a little bit about Jormungand, and you were there watching. That's funny. But like, there's very limited end game content, right? Like we've
Yeah.
got Sky, we've got C, we've got Tia, we've got Jormy, and hopefully soon Vertra. Not going to push you on that, but goddamn, we're waiting for that to come out.
Actually, that should be very soon. I think Frank's been in the final stages of it for like a couple. So he was in the final stages of it like 3 weeks ago. No, probably longer, like a month ago.
Uh-huh.
And then magic stuff, and then everybody knows where that went. So
Right. Yeah, he loves magic.
yeah. He got distracted, so to say, with magic, but he definitely
Scroll.
had Vertra like pretty much ready to go. So
With like the summons are all good and everything. Like we've got that all. Okay. I don't want to
Yeah.
get too far into it, but I was
I
just
think
curious.
so.
We're excited. So like to address the point. So like, there's very limited. Oh, Dynamis too. I forgot. So like, how like does the team address like content size like in relation to content availability? I know that we just put in, or you guys just put in the new diorite, and that helped possibly some of the congestion with Uli. But like, how are we looking at, or how is the team looking at the future? As you even said yourself, like you have 3,000 plus people. A lot more of those people are now getting into end game content. What is your strategy for appeasing everyone, or at least attempting to appease most of the people, when it comes to stuff like that? Because if you look at something like Tiamat, right, when its window opens, like now you have like 8,000 pink pearls out there farming DKP. Like, how do we address, and that's totally not a slam, but it is. How do we address, like, how is the team going to address like future content? Like, how do we keep everyone happy? Is there, it talks about like making everything pop items, like
Absolutely not. So this is a really hard one to say. I don't think there's ever going to be pop items on Horizon. There's two very, very anti pop item people running the server, which is Frank and I. We are like 1,000% against H&M pop items, and there's a reason for that, which is, and people are going to be like, oh my god, claiming's not skill, blah blah blah. But the competition between link shells and the community interaction when stuff like that happens is like quintessential what ffxi was hardcore during many expansion packs, and and taking that away so that people can literally AFK farm kindred seals to go buy pop items is been there on Wings, and the end game on Wings was dead. It was so bad. Like and I mean this everybody's like you can balance it by drop rates, but I'm like, man, even with Horizon how it currently is balanced, I can get enough 99 orbs to legitimately have everything I need from Kings in like a month or two, and then it's just like, well, like then I'm just done with endgame. Um, it is a hard balance to provide something that we love and enjoy and also provide the experience players want. Players take Horizon as like, oh, you guys are Era Plus, so that means you can just like change willy-nilly things, but we really care about the fact that we want this to feel like you're playing in the game back in the day. And pop items isn't that. Pop items is not Final Fantasy and Era.
it's true.
And so how do you make people happy when it comes to that? It's just like, well, I mean, on Lakshmi, there's 500 people in the pit every day, man. Like this, how it is today and how Link Shell's formed is a factor of how players know things work. We never thought there would be mass link shells, which is why the current H&M system is designed the way it was. Is the fact is, people for H&Ms really enjoyed, at least the people that we interviewed and talked to. I think we reached out to like 100, 150 people and talked about H&Ms and what type of H&Ms and camping they enjoyed most. Pointed to the fact that they like things like Dark Ixion and Sandworm a lot more than just sitting in a fucking spot for 3 hours pressing a button every 30 minutes trying to like claim provoke or turning on NASA or turning on their bot to try and bot claim over other people. And so we were like, okay, well let's see what we can do to keep that competitive going out and camping against people feel to the game, but yet make it more interesting. And so our 2 points from here where we have this camp system where the H&M spawn in multiple zones, and they spawn on spots that people know. Is we go one of two ways. We go to so many different pop points that there's no feasible way that a single link shell could ever possibly camp every single spot, to less to where people feel safe enough to go in like groups of like 10 and claim it as smaller groups, to the fact that they don't need these giant link shells anymore. But at the same time, it's also a big social experiment, to where, well, people are in these giant link shells. Is what we're going to do really going to break up these larger link shells at these points? Like the fact that players built these larger link shells because they felt that this is like, we're just going to, so one link shell did it, so another link shell ended up doing it because they felt that they had to remain competitive and claim, is all a big social aspect of the game. That's called, like, it's social and psychological engineering. Is how do you code around people's current mindsets of the game? Like, if we change H&Ms, is that really going to break up the monotony of a giant link shell? Like, if we do pop items, no, the giant link shell's not going to break up. They're just going to farm all of their orbs and just blow them all up.
I don't know that pop items is going to do it necessarily, but I think that right now what we're seeing is that you have to be in a giant link shell of like 100+ people if you want to have any sort of consistent chance of claiming something like FAF or KB or Aspid or whatever, because how else is any link shell going to cover with a reasonable amount of people at, like, what is it, like 5 spots per zone in 4 different zones for each?
Yeah, that's
H&M?
true. Which is why we are looking into it. But at the same time, that's not going to change much if you put everybody in Dragon's Area. You're going to have 100 people
no.
trying to claim it versus 10.
But
So
what if there was like just one pop spot per zone of the 4 zones, so that like a link shell that was formerly of 100 to 150 people, we instead have 40 people and we're sending 10 people per zone, so that like it's a more intimate feel of that same social aspect. Because like right now, and I'm sure you already know this, but like
oh yeah.
most people feel like if they're not part of these giant link shells, they're just not getting claims.
Well, see, that's the big thing, is that big word is feel. So the thing about it is no one's really going out there and experimenting with it. I mean, that's another semblance of something else on H&Ms that's currently broken right now that I've been bashing my head against a wall for like 2 weeks trying to fix, which is a draw-in that's supposed to be working. It's
Which
supposed to be.
kinda
It's
works.
not. It's fucking not. It's not working.
It worked on Adamantoys for us the other day,
Fuck,
but it hasn't
yeah,
worked on.
whatever.
It has not worked on many others.
I don't fucking know what it is. There's something wrong. Like, so we implemented pretty much something that did that, but still kept it out, which is like you have your 10 people in the zone and you just spread them out, and the mob would draw you in enough so that every zone, all you really had to do is a small clan party, and it would be
Well,
it
you
would
say
be
that,
enough.
but then you have the claim shield that some people say claims unfairly. I mean, I can't say.
Oh,
with
it
any sort of-
doesn't. This
Oh, no,
claim shield
look,
is legitimately the most fair thing I've ever seen shat out of a Final Fantasy private server.
and I completely
Like,
believe you. But like, there's a lot of people who.
I mean, if you turn it off, you're just going to get bots, and everybody. Like, here's the thing about it: all we have right now is a bunch of conspiracy theories, because it's like, oh my gosh, if you turn it off, everything's going to be more fair because it's just the fastest and slow competitive. And I'm like, no, I'm going to turn it off, and then your guys are going to have bots all the. Your people, even if people don't use bots, the people who claim it first are going to get called out for bots, and you're just going to have internal drama. One. Claim shield is the most fair thing that you can really implement here because of latency issues. So the biggest thing about Final Fantasy 11 and latency is legitimately the mob spawning for you is based off of latency and the packet sent to you. So if I'm in a zone and a mob spawns to me, if I'm closer to the server, that mob will show up for me quicker than someone further away from the server 100% of the time.
Sure.
And so the only way for that to get around on is illegal claim tools or
packet sniffers,
packet sniffers, or other things that allow you to target the mob before you're sent a packet.
Right. So, like, let me ask you this question. So, like, with the claim shield, and I don't want you to give up any secrets. Obviously, you wouldn't anyways. But like, so if if a link shell were to go in there and they have, let's say, an alliance of folks, right, like 18 people.
Mm-hmm.
If that alliance were to break up and then into 3 separate parties, and each of those three parties were to try to claim versus being in the same alliance trying to claim,
It's
do
the
they have a
exact
better
same.
chance?
No,
It's
it's the
okay.
exact same odds. It's legitimately a true lottery. If you get on that hate list at all, it ignores pets. It literally just is you as a player. It says ignore everything but a player interaction with me. Once that player has interacted with me, add them to a list. Randomly pick one person out of that list to assign claim. There's no weights to anything. It is legitimately a completely random choice out of a single file list. So every person has one single entry. That's that. That's it. There's no alliance rules or anything.
Cool. I mean, it's great to hear because, like, obviously, there's conspiracy theories surrounding that as well. I'm sure
It's
you know that.
completely.
Like, there's always going to be conspiracy theories about everything. So that kind of leads into like.
I
the
mean,
next
it's just like crafting facing northeast on Wednesday,
Oh.
man. Like,
Hmm.
Well, I mean, that was back
I
on
think
retail though.
that's the
That's been on
biggest. I
some
think that's
retail.
the biggest conspiracy theory there is, right? That at least was back in the day. So.
Yeah, and moon phase matters and all of that
Yeah,
kind of
moon
stuff
phase
too.
matters. Yeah.
I was just facing my zodiac sign yesterday. Don't judge me.
So that kind of leads into the next question. So, like, we're talking about like that kind of like you were talking about like botters and that stuff. So I know you don't want to talk about like how you guys handle stuff, so I won't ask you any questions about that. But what is the official Horizon stance on players who exploit broken content, and what are the consequences for those people?
Exploiting broken content. I think you saw it today. People exploited an H&M that was
Yes,
spawning
back a deck.
HQ
Yes.
over and over again. We felt it was most fair in this instance to take away all potential major drops from this and just reset it. So if a person got a major drop for this and they sold it, the person who bought it from them was refunded the gil and the item was taken away. Just period.
Can
I
you
think
guys
that's
just
the fairest thing to
clarify?
do.
Can you guys clarify what
sorry.
happened? Because I don't actually know what this situation
Yeah,
was.
so the HQ Beastman Kings were so obviously there's just like with the kings like Fafnir and Nidhogg, there's an HQ Beastman Kings, and we're going to use the Orc one for an example because the HQ Orc drops the Juggernaut Axe and the NQ drops jack shit.
Gotcha.
And so the HQ was spawning every day, pretty much guaranteed, and it's been going on for like a week and a half now, and so there's like 10 extra Juggernauts on the server that aren't supposed to be. And so we found it, we fixed the bug, and we just took extra ones away without punishing players because that's the most fair thing to do, at least in that instance, because it was more of a widespread thing where players were just doing it and finding out about it. If it's of the case when like a small group of people are keeping an exploit secret and they do it over and over again to benefit themselves and themselves only, that's when you're really on the risk of like potential suspensions and bans from the server. It really depends on like the benefit and whether you were doing it maliciously or not, which I mean, if I'm a link shell out being competitive, I'm going to claim what's considered an H&M every day, no matter what. So that's why we kind of didn't. But
Well,
it's
from my understanding, it was pretty much one link shell that was doing it. Would that not be considered malicious? Like
it
was
wasn't. There was a couple there, which is
okay,
why,
right.
yeah. There's a couple of different groups there getting it, which is why we didn't do it.
Fair.
Consider it malicious. There have been some instances of people exploiting bugs that we have considered malicious and banned them from the server. We are a pretty like fuck you policy when it comes to exploiting and cheating and RMTing. We have a no tolerance policy. If you RMT on our server, you are permanently banned. There are no take backsies. There's no nothing. You are permanently banned and forever unwelcome from playing on our server. If you feel the need to cheat and RMT and do other things on our server, it is not only shitting on the community, it's shitting on our devs and all of the time that we've spent trying to make this a fair and fun like place for people to play. And doing that like specifically not only dumps on the community and those who are playing fair on our server, but it dumps on us. And we don't get paid for this bullshit. So I'm not going to sit there, we're not going to sit there and give you like a 3-strike rule or bull crap like SE did where you're paying them. You're not paying me, dog. I'm just going to ban you. I'm just going to say, okay, you RMT'd, like, I don't know why you felt the need to go out and like spend $100. Dude, by the way, guys, if you look on RMT sites, holy shit. don't buy Horizon Go. That shit is like, that's your mortgage, man. Like, holy shit, it's
You
expensive.
don't pay my sub. I can
Like,
do what I want.
it's bad. Like when we catch people for RMT, we're like, how do you afford this, man? Like, holy shit, it's expensive.
They're taking out a second mortgage just for Gil.
I don't know, man. It's nuts. But it's we're passionate about it because it's like, man, like one, it's a game, like, and it's not a difficult game. And why do you feel the need to like cheat? It's dumbfounding to us. We spend a great deal of our time where we could be deving to a U and Wings of the Goddess, instead deving things like anti-cheat principles because fuckers want to go out and like do things illegally, like easy farm and claim bots and other things like people are doing every day, where we legitimately have a GM, a separate. It got so bad where we actually had to go out and create a second staff Discord just for GMing because of how bad things got at one point. It's not that bad now, but we ban people every day for doing stupid stuff, and it's not worth it. We have people being like, "But man, this is like the one thing that I enjoy," and I'm like, "Then why the
Why
fuck did you
cheat?
cheat?"
Yeah,
Like,
right.
why cheat? Like he's like, "I didn't do anything." Like, but if you forgive me this one time, why are you asking for forgiveness if you didn't cheat? Like, people are dumb, by the way. When don't make tickets and give up the fact that you did cheat and you're begging for forgiveness. But like it's dumbfounding to me. Like we won't get into how we do it because that's how people get around how we do it. But it's like why? Like we have anti-cheat tools that are 100%. They will every single time catch you for what you're doing. And people are like, but I didn't do it. And then their friend who was with them was like, yeah, we did it. And I'm like, oh, well. It's legitimately like you separate the bad kids in their own tickets and they give each other up. It's hilariously bad.
Of course. That old police mentality of how you
It's just like it dumbfounds me because like when I made Horizon, one of my stances was like, I'm not like we're like everybody was begging me to start off with like a ban list. Like let's take our ban list from Wings and just bring it over so that people who cheated on Wings, who we know are going to cheat here again, are just pre-banned. And I was just like, you know what? No, like we're we the team are starting over. Let's give chances for everybody to at least have fun one more time and be a better person. And dude, I would say like 80% of them.
Most of those people have been banned again. Yes,
the second chance is Horizon.
Second chance is just getting banned again, man. Let me just say that it's hilariously bad. Like what the dumb stuff people do. That's obvious. That's just like why are you easy farming fucking wild rabbits in Saruta Baruta, man? Like, are you that lazy? Are you that lazy to not level your own character to level 12? I don't know, man. It's so bad.
But I had a question for you. It's a little more, not in that same realm of in-game, but it's so for you, since you know you're the Horizon dev team, what's your favorite in-game story thus far from the server?
The favorite in-game, like what's happened so far story?
Yeah.
Oh boy. I mean, there's a couple of them. I mean, the trees were hilarious. Like we said, the outpost trees were like 10 out of 10. I think my favorite like lull moment so far is the fact that the Starlight goblins were running around for like a month after we ended Starlight. And it was just like,
and the music didn't change either.
and the music didn't change and stuff like that. That was like our first meme. I don't know. Like I definitely, gosh, that's kind of like a really hard one. Oh, I think my favorite moment, because I wrote, if you guys didn't know, you can blame me. I wrote the H&M system. Literally, it was all me, how it currently is. And I was around on my GM character. So what we did, and I'll let the cat out of the bag here, is we set it so that no H&M on the server would spawn for at least a week. So it wouldn't let a cat out of the bag. And then a week after the server was up, Behemoth spawned in Battaglia Downs, and people were losing their collective shit because there was like the zone message, and then people were like, wait, what the fuck is this? And then someone walked past Behemoth where it was at, because it was up on, I think it was up on the Bucidine side, I think it was, or something like that. And
No, I think,
people,
wasn't it in Saramagwe, like right next to the rock spawn when people were going into Marifaton?
no, that was
Just
the
hanging
first
out there?
that was the first time King Behemoth
Oh, KB,
spawned.
right?
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
sorry.
Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
first time any H&M spawned where people discovered it was no, sorry, the second time, because so Frank asked me to do him a favor, and he said the first time H&M spawned in the server, they should spawn in their original spot to trick people.
Right.
So what we did is we had every H&M spawn in like Behemoth's Dominion, Dragon Airy, and Valley of Sorrows for the first time that they spawned, and it worked great. So people were like, "Oh my gosh, we have time H&Ms here." And then the second time they spawned, it was like randomly all over the world. And so obviously Behemoth was the first one killed because it's like the first one that's like really worth it to kill for like the hides and shit like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it spawned in Battalion, and people like collectively lose their shit. And I was really happy because that's what I wanted. As I wanted it to be more of like a go out and find it and kind of chase it thing. Like that's really was the design intent, was for it to be more of like a dark Ixian thing where it was like, okay, we need to scout the zones and have people go and chase them across like regions and stuff like that. And it just didn't. Obviously, we know it didn't work out. Yeah, as planned. But
I'm not gonna lie. I rounded the corner and Quiffum and ran into him, and I was like, "What the?"
and so at least for me, like that's as a dev, that's oftentimes like the best moments for us is like when you code and like you work on something so hard, and then you go and you like see people interact with that in game. That's like there's nothing better, I think. Like I remember on Wings when I like first started deving and I coded like old Professor Mary Say and like the entire Sicarium mission, and people were like seeing him and actually like he was teleporting around and doing this stuff like that, and people were like, oh my god, we can get Swift belts now. That was like the moment it clicked, and I started having like a lot more fun deving.
So, like, in regards to kind of like that, like with the 21 to 24-hour respawn stuff, like Shikigami weapon and Morbulger and like the
Uh-huh.
Kings and stuff, like,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts? Like,
Mhm.
what was the reasoning behind those changes? Like, why did you guys decide to change them to the 21 to 24-hour respawns?
Like instead of
Like, what the
like
retail
visually.
values are? Yeah.
I mean, the retail values are 21 to 24, and we shortened all of them to do smaller windows. So none of them are 24 to 24 hours. They should all be a shorter window. If they aren't, then that's a current bug. So one of the biggest complaints on retail is if you did the popped, like not the pop, the timed H&Ms, is the fact that you're spending in your day 9 hours of your playtime sitting in Behemoth's Dominion, Valley of Sorrows, and Dragon's Area just waiting for them to pop. So we were like, well, can we do some math to say, okay, let's find a window that we're comfortable with that still moves the window around, like, within the different time zones,
Mhm.
and provides kind of maybe a sped up amount of pops, a slightly sped up amount of pops, but yet reduces greatly the amount of times you're spending actually sitting on your ass doing nothing, waiting for the H&Ms to spawn. So we reduced them.
So was there no
Um,
like consideration perhaps for like the EU folks and people that are playing at different hours? Like if it's moving 3 hours every day, like that's a great movement for those H&M so that like people can actually get a chance at them that wouldn't normally.
Well, so this is the same caveat. So what this does is it gives you longer breaks. So when it's
Right.
in EU, it's in EU longer. When it's NA, it's in NA longer. So it's kind of a caveat onto, well, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer to have it in NA for like 2 days straight and then it's out of your times, or do you prefer to have it in NA for like a week so that you might have a better chance of seeing it in HQ, and then it go into EU where they have a better chance of seeing it HQ. And so it was the latter one where we were like, well, if we can keep it in there for longer, then EU may only have to send a couple of people out to get TODs. And then when it's back in their time zone, then they're heavily camping it to get their HQ. And then it's going back for NA to get the HQ. Because the worst thing about, I think, H&Ms back in the day for me was we're camping it hardcore. And then it's like fucking 4 a.m. And that's the HQ day where it's completely out of our time zone.
Right.
So our kind of goal there was like give it enough time in each time zone for it to reasonably get an HQ before it goes into the next time zone. So
Cool.
So I have a question. I tend to approach a lot of this from like the perspective of playing Thief. It's my main. It's really one of the reasons I play this game is just I really enjoy a lot of aspects of it. And I'm looking at the slight reworks that the AF gear got, like across the
Mhm.
board. It's not just necessarily on Thief. And I'm wondering, is there any consideration for relic changes or AF+1 changes? Is that something that still has the potential to be done, or is it off the table?
So nothing is off the table, as people can see from 1.1. We have so I like one of the things that I said when we made the server, and I've said this publicly multiple times, which is like we're not considering ladder pulling an excuse. We're not considering big things like that an excuse for the overall health of the game. If we can make the game better at the excuse of, we're pushing, we're making it easier for people, we're making it harder for people. I don't think that should be an excuse when it comes to what you do in a development scenario, especially when if you're a legitimate game company making an MMO, no one does that. Like that's never an excuse that they care about when it comes to like balancing or doing their games. Um, the problem we have is we have this goal of horizontal progression throughout the entire life of the game. And so we have to think about one of the major aspects of a horizontal game, which is gear economy. The more we do to gear now means the less we can do to gear later to keep that horizontal progression. Because the more that we give gear now means the more that we have to give gear later for you to find worth in doing events. Like if we release Abyssia and we've buffed everything to do with COP and TOAU and Wings of the Goddess, then the things that we have to give out in Abyssia either have to be either exclusive and only work in Abyssia, or they have to be better in some way or worthwhile in some way compared to what we've given out so far, so that you find worth in doing that content. Like we're not going to release we can't release content and give you something like an NM that has a drop that's not really worthwhile. No one's going to camp the NM, right? There are tons of NMs in Final Fantasy 11 that no one camps because the gear is, meh, right? And so it came to the point of how much gear can we potentially add to stuff while keeping the future as open as possible for doing stuff, because we know what's coming, right? And so it's one of those things where, can I go in and change every single relic piece and every single AF piece to be worthwhile? Yes. But that takes away from the fact that, well, we have to do that with wings and seekers and stuff. And if we make niche pieces now, then I have to make niche pieces later that are better than the niche pieces now, and then horizontal progression is gone.
So I think
So
the sentiment in the community is more so when you look at, okay, I'll just take Thief as an example. You've got in the leg slot, you've got the Bravo Subliger at 2% haste, which is a rare NM drop. You've got the Homom at 3% haste, which is a clear upgrade, and it's like an obvious progression path. But then you've got, I wish I had the relic or the AF or the AF+1 pulled up here, but I would almost see like, you slap a 1% haste on either of these items, and now you've got something to build towards that's not hoping for a rare drop, that's not hoping for a Limbus progression drop, but is accessible to a player before they can move on to those items. So not
yeah,
necessarily making things really good, but just filling in a gap in between those sort of target pieces that we already know. We know what the best in slot looks like in this era. Filling in the gaps between what that stuff is and where we're currently sitting at.
yeah, I think the problem with that is then there's no like gear like that to give out later on. So like we can
Okay.
give out and make leveling gear and have like a complete leveling progression, but it's the same question, right? If we come to Wings of the Goddess, there are tons of Wings of the Goddess NMs that drop items that are like 50 to 60s that are meant for leveling. So it's like one of those things where it's kind of the same thing where how do you balance, well, and that and dev work, right? Like I we only have a certain amount of people and there's only like so many things that we can dive into. Like if we wanted to rebalance and look at every single fucking piece in the game, that's it's really hard, especially when we have goals. Like if you guys want treasures to come, then it unfortunately means the fact that we can't really look into too much. Like I said last time, when the balance team did our 1.1 DAT changes, like 1.1 item adjustment changes, those DAT changes are not simple and they don't you know, I think they took me a couple of days just to get everything compiled and put together and ready for the depth, but still aren't released because we're still testing them because there's been like a couple of crashes related to them. So
Is that why there's no stats listed on the items? I thought I saw those new items that you added, but I didn't see like attack
yeah,
and stuff on them. Is that a DAT
yeah,
thing? Is what's
it's
the
a DAT.
situation there?
So everything displayed on the client in game is DAT. And like I said before, we can, if you guys want me back on the podcast later, we can have a technical podcast where I like show off things.
Yes.
That's no problem. I'm fine.
Yes.
I'm fine. We can do a technical podcast later where we legitimately going to the technical aspects of the server. But DATs are legitimately like the game files. So like when you open up an item and you like display it in game, that's a client side thing. SE doesn't read anything from the server whatsoever when it comes to items. The client itself is like, if this item is level 50 and a war can equip it, if the server tells them that that is not a level 50 item and the war can't equip it, guess what the client's going to let that player do? Equip the item.
Right.
So it's one of those things where the only thing we can do in that in scenario, which is what we do on the server to make sure people can't like DAT mod and like put on items of their own fucking accord, is tell the server is if you see this item on a player, unequip it because they shouldn't have it on. So
like with the horizontal progression thing, like
yeah.
and we're never moving past level 75. Does that mean that like, you know, an item like the yin yang robe, for example, like for summoners, of course, because I'm coming from the summoner point of view. So, you know, just like Quetch comes from the thief, I'm going to come from the summoner. So like, is the hope that like even into something like Seekers, that like an item like the yin yang robe would still be usable and something that like would be valuable in the summoner's arsenal at that point?
That's the goal. I mean, it might not be best in slot anymore, but our goal is to have it to be like this gear that I have that I've had forever should be usable throughout the life of the game.
Okay.
Or have so the goal really is like what can we do niche wise? Like what is missing niche from sets? Like so the main balance goal that we have when it comes like is looking at item progression when it comes to like Wings of the Goddess is because TOAU set, right? Like if we made no TOAU item changes whatsoever, people would be happy.
They would. I would too.
People would be very happy. But if like past that, so Wings of the Goddess, half of it is post level cap. So the goal is everything post level cap to take a serious look into maybe not even being the same. I guarantee the Empyrean gear, if and when we release it, will be nothing like its original implementation. Like nothing like it. It might have some semblance to like some stats and stuff like that, but our goal is to really provide through new gear, potentially new ways to play jobs, niche pieces that can be added to best in slot gear sets and stuff that really do funky things that couldn't have been done before, that don't break the game, but really have you being like, you know, this is something I kind of want to go for because I potentially see something that I can do for this that really makes this a little more fun or easier on me, or I can swap in for an ability, or I can swap in for a specific piece of magic, stuff like that is what we're trying to really hit the hammer on later until we do some things that I can't talk about.
Sure, of course.
Because I know the future, I get to write that, but there are tons of ways to do specific things. For examples, like and I'll throw out one example which may or may not be a thing in the future. It's currently on the working table, which is custom single job items that are currently multi-job items. So let's take an item specifically Habergian for example. What you'd be able to do is go on a quest and gather items to turn a Habergian into a warrior specific Habergian. So it'd consume your Habergian and give you a warrior specific one that gives you specific stats that benefit warrior, which one adds to the economy, because if you're a person with like warrior, nin, and multiple job and Sam and multiple jobs that can use hobby, you would have to buy multiple hobbies to give all of your jobs that buffed niche hobby that makes that job slightly better than it was.
That's
right?
awesome.
Look out,
which kind of builds. So stuff like that is like on the table for us to do, and it's super easy to do because guess what exists in the game? The augment system. And the funny
Right.
thing about SE is their augment system isn't tied to that, so you can do whatever the fuck you want with
Oh,
it. So
That's
it's like
awesome.
SE got smart near the end, and so like the later you go with some of their systems, the easier it is to work with Goodwise. So
Well, because they got lazy because they didn't have as many people to work
yeah,
on the
they got
project.
real
Right.
lazy. Like yeah,
So like as we move forward into TOAU and stuff, like obviously you're gonna have mythics. I mean, it would be silly not to. But I guess
yeah.
like my question is like as you're talking about like gear progression and that kind of stuff, like what are the thoughts about like afterglowing like your mythic weapons and stuff? Is that something that's gonna be coming down the pipeline or something that you guys are kind of like,
Like, are you talking
I don't
like bonus
know.
stats or just giving the
Yeah,
glow?
no, not just not the visual effect, but like the actual like. For example, on retail, I'm a blue mage, and I'll tell that loud and proud. And I have a Tizona and I have an Almace, and they're both afterglowed, and like that afterglow effect is pretty fantastic for the Tizona, for example. So is like something like that something that you guys are considering still putting into the game, or is it seem too overpowered, kind of like in the same category as the red mage? Because let's be honest, the Tizona,
They're fucking overpowered is
they
what I mean.
absolutely are. Like a
all
Tizona
of
in
the
the
after
hand of a blue
like
mage never runs out of
yeah,
mana.
yeah. It's
Ever.
like it's one of those things where you might not recognize relics or mythics once we're done with them. But
Okay.
in the same aspect where yeah, everybody who's watching, stay tuned. We're having a stream soon that's going to talk about a lot of things, including relics. But mythics are obviously a later topic. But our goal with relics and mythics and remas is every single one of them should have a specific purpose and fundamentally change how the job is played that they are augmenting.
Okay.
And that can do like a multitude of things. We want them to be one, not required. The biggest thing about them is we never want a rema to be required for any content, because then that makes them required, and then everybody has to go out, and you have the retail problem, which is I can't do ambuscade without looking for rema.
Well, you're right, and I think that a lot of bards are scared right now because that G horn was basically essential for retail. And without saying too much, obviously, because you're gonna have your stream or whatever. Like, do bards need to be worried?
No, the G horn that is on the server is exactly how it was. G horn is overpowered as it is
Mm-hmm.
for a multitude of reasons. And people are just like, oh my god, balance don't matter. No, G horn gives you March tiers, man. G horn is fat.
OP,
Like
absolutely.
it is good. Like people are like, you need to buff G horn, and I was like, it gives you March tiers and ballot. Like it's insane. Like the things that G horn allows you to do is just absolutely insane. A red mage bard combo will never run out of mana. Should
Right.
never ever run out of mana. If they do, that they are just like the worst two people in the game.
You wanted to say bad so bad. They're just
I wanted
bad.
to say a different word, but it's just one of those things where it's like, and so we have to take. I mean, there's glaring obvious relics that are just like they are memes. There's staff. There's a couple of other ones that are just like, if you build this, is a waste of the 80 mil that you're spending on. It's a waste of your Link Shell's time. You're building it to literally be a meme, and that's one, unfair to those, I think, weapons who should have some meaningful purpose, and two, to the person who wants to build them to like play their job. Black Mage did not have a relic. I would say that now.
Neither did
Colostrum is
Summoner.
it's just so bad where I consider them to not even have one, is how bad it was. Which was hilarious, because if they could actually melee or build decent actual melee kits back in the day, Colostrum was fucking pretty good.
Right.
If you could actually go for a melee aftermath build. But the problem is guess what? SE memed again, making it so that the 1K, 2K, 3K aftermaths for Colostrum were 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and a minute, which is fucking useless for a black mage, especially when it's only like if you made that like 1, 2, and 3 minutes, then it might be worthwhile for them to like use Icarus wings to like have one ready to like pop and just use so that you get the 8 a tick refresh. Like that would be like a niche way to use that aftermath is if oh shit moment's happening, Icarus Wing, use my weapon skill on the mob. Oh, and by the way, it could miss. That's even better. It could miss and I
Right.
don't even get my aftermath. That's even fucking better. So it's
That's
just stuff like that when it comes to like those tier weapons that are taking months of your time. They should be meaningful. So that's our aspect behind them.
That makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you going into that for me. So just a couple more here. We're almost done. So you guys have done a lot, and I want to say,
Oh,
I want to be
boy.
the first one to say in all of this, like, you guys are doing a fantastic job. I know you guys get a lot of shit, and I know that the community, like, whatever, because you have trolls or whatever, and like, you guys are doing a fantastic job. We love playing your game. What you've done is amazing, and all of us, I know, in this podcast, at the very least, are desperately looking forward to the future because of what you've created. So thank you so much for that. And you've done
It's been a time.
well, you've done a lot, and you've worked really hard. And me, especially with my background, I know how difficult that is, and especially with like the limited resources that you have. And you've created a lot of new things. So in that light, my question is, are you guys open to creating new and like custom encounters like on the same tier as the current worms? Like
I
a
would
lightning worm
I
or
would say if you're interested in the answer to that question, if I were you, I would definitely set aside time to watch the stream where we talk about relics. I would
Okay.
Love it.
All
All
right.
right, all right. All right. So we've
because
got some stuff
the
to look
answer to
forward
that question is coming soon, and I won't go too in depth into that. So.
I hope that you
But
don't.
I mean, okay,
I-
so the bit like I said, the big reason why I moved on from like specific Aerec server coding development is there can always be more, and you have no idea how fun it was to like write King Arthro and
oh,
the
that was
mechanic
that. I think
and
honestly, that's
the
the biggest
mechanics
change.
to King Arthro and stuff like that. So
That is the best change. You guys did such an amazing job on that. That fight is so much fun.
it was ass because like I said before, we had some issues with like local testing to beta testing to prod testing, and that was the worst one that I had so far. I had tested it locally, never crashed a zone. Tested it on beta, never crashed a zone. It went prod, and the first groups were trying to kill it, and it was crashing
and it
like
crashed the zone.
every single time. Like a specific crab was spawning, and so we called it during development. We called the encounter King Arthur's Court.
Oh, that's
And it was
awesome.
way worse because I had it spawning the entire chessboard. I
Oh, really?
legitimately had it spawning like the entire like chessboard of mobs that
It was.
each did specific things.
DA looks
And-
confused.
Yeah,
well,
what's the
so-
change?
Um,
Because
so
that mid tier.
explain the change that you guys made from retail for King Arthur. Like, I could go through it, but I would love to hear you.
no. You go through it. I would
Okay.
love to
Hey,
see
no,
the view of
So
someone who's done it.
So the
I hear
okay.
LTL all the time, though.
Well, the window opens, and when the actual spawn happens, you get a group of, I believe, rook crabs, right? And or
the night
crabs first, right? Yeah. So night crabs. So it's like 10 night crabs. I don't know the exact number. And then once all of those are dead, the actual window opens, and King Arthro is going to spawn.
Mm-hmm.
You claim King Arthro, and then the as you're fighting him, when he hits 80%, I believe, the rook and the pawn both come at you, and you have to kill them before you can maintain damage or put damage back on KA. Then every 20%, it's another rook and a pawn until, what is it, 20% when the queen spawns?
Ooh.
Is it 20%? Okay.
No, it's not 20%.
Is it 40%? It's like it's one of those percentages, or 50%.
It's 50. It's 50.
Okay, so 50%. I'm sorry. It's been a while since I fought KA, but then the queen spawns and you have to kill her, and then you go back to fighting KA.
Yeah.
And then like
That's
every
awesome.
20%, like
Yeah.
these other two crabs spawn, and then you kill him and your declaws.
So in testing, I'm gonna say it was way worse. I had it buffed to like level 88 or like 90, which is like the equivalent of making it a grand worm, like a sky god grand worm. And it was hellish, because it would spawn. So it spawns every like interval, it spawns a pond crab that picks a random person that King Arthur has hate on in the current alliance it's fighting, and the pond crab speeds towards them and explodes with a bubble shower. So it bubble showers and then despawns. The bubble shower is doing like 1.2k damage to everybody at those levels. And then every X iteration of HP, it spawned a rook and a bishop crab. The bishop crab fortifies the attack, and the rook crab fortified the defense of KA. And the defense was like minus 99% damage taken until the rook crab was dead. But the problem is the bishop crab gave King Arthur 50% triple attack.
Okay.
So you had to like legitimately like just spam Zerg down the bishop crab or die. And then the queen spawned, and the queen does one thing and one thing only. She wasn't stunnable, and she sat there and spammed Waterga 5.
Jesus Christ.
So she would cast Waterga 5, but it was beatable because of there's nothing that requires you to have a water resistant set. And so that was my goal here, is to have players, because it would legitimately, if you did not have a water resistant set and queen came out, it would legitimately just fucking wipe your alliance. No questions asked. So my goal for that was to have a paladin, because all you had to do, you never had to touch the queen crab. All you had to do was have someone with the proper set pull and tank her away from the group, because you don't have to kill her. She is not required to be killed. And so all you had to do is really have someone tank. And so with a water resistant set, it was doing like 400 to 500 damage per Waterga, and so it was okay to tank. And so you'd have someone tank it away, like you'd pull her away from the group and have it be super tanked elsewhere, while people burnt down the regular King Arthur before your sub tank party ran out of like MP or whatever they had. But
Wow.
so that was that.
That's crazy. But I did want to say that King Arthur fight is awesome, and I've heard so many people say the same thing. So kudos to you and the team for creating that.
It was a fun one. So I think people killed it when they were barely guild at 65, and like 10 people was the first kill, and they ran into the enrage and had it enraged for about 30 seconds. I'm sure it's being killed in like practically no time now, but it was fun to see it actually be a challenge for like the first month or so.
Absolutely. So like in that same kind of like vein, what is your like stance, or like can we look forward to it in the future? And I know you've touched a little bit on this before. Can we look forward to in the future like your creation of additional like custom loot items? For example, the shepherd's bonnet and the worm tongue. Are those new things coming down the pipeline?
You sure can. You didn't even mention my favorite one, which was my baby for the longest time, which is awesome. I mean, I can't. If you don't know what it is, I can't talk about it and please that. But I have
it's
a
already
single.
in the game, right?
I'm sure it's already in the game, and I know someone has it. So there's a specific item that we implemented on purpose for a specific job on a specific H&M that is new. So
okay,
Post it in the comments.
No clues as to what class that's for?
Take a guess in the comments down below on the YouTube. If you're listening
Okay,
on
help us.
Spotify,
I'm sure people know what it is, but it's like there's like one item deep into two. Like it is BIS for the class that we gave it for. It is BIS until like late 2AU.
all right, we'll let them guess. I think
It's really good. It's really good. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a ton of gear that we had planned as well, including 3 things that you may see in the future that I guess I'll talk about because I have time before we end. There were 3 concepts that I had for equipment. One was tailored. One was, oh my gosh, let me fucking pull this out of my ass. I gotta look this up for you guys really quickly. It was. Oh, I know where this is at. I'm sorry. I know where this is at. Sorry. Let me pull this up.
It's on Aeric's 15th and 16th model.
Dog, I don't want to talk about this. Okay, so I'll let you guys guess what they meant, but the 3 things that I was adding to gear, like this was going to be, you know how on gear that like when the gear is special, like on chatoyant staff. It had quote like in quotes iridescence. I had designed and added 3 new things similar to that called tailored, specialized, and adaptive to gear that never got implemented for launch that I'm definitely holding in my back pocket for the future. So
Ooh, exciting.
That's really cool. Yeah, like a gear passive.
kind of, yeah. Each one of them had a fun thing that they did for that specific like thing. So and it definitely, since I didn't plan on explaining like what that specific thing did on that gear, would require definitely a lot of community get together on what it did specifically. So
I'm all distracted now because my head is just running. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
that's the point.
Again, down in the YouTube comments below, be sure to leave what you think those things might mean as we come to a close here.
Couple more questions for you on this. We talked about the approach to the development and the new content, et cetera, on here, but what kind of input do you seek from the players in this community? I know you talked about being in incognito mode in the actual parties, being able to kind of just play along with people, silently watching H&M camps. Obviously, with the Horizon Discord, are there any kind of places specific that you're looking for feedback, or any specific types of feedback that we can more funnel people towards by watching this?
I mean, not really like specific. We're not looking for specific feedback on things. I can tell you the type of feedbacks that don't get ignored instantaneously. If you have feedback and you need to provide feedback, constructive criticism is like the best kind. You can 100% criticize what we do, but the best way to do that is via constructive means. Like if you're looking to not destroy the server and what it means, the best way for you to do it is literally through like a constructive criticism. Sure, you can have what you don't like, but at the same time, you need to explain points, detail them out, detail potential fixes. But it's all about not just coming in and being like, "Yo, dude, you're fucking wrong. This sucks ass." Like, what am I, a dev, supposed to do with a comment like that? Like, cool, it sucks. Like awesome, that's fantastic. But we really, really, really do go in there and look for like the people who are constructive about things, who go in and look at problems and find good things about them. Because there's the thing about this, you can provide criticism, but there's always good and bad things about everything at Final Fantasy 11, what you do in life, etc. And so, the H&M system, for example, there's good and bad things about this. There are things that are fun and were fun about the H&M system before it became the shit show that it was. Everybody who played H&M scene early really liked discovering where the H&Ms were and running and doing the chase. But once the spawn points are found, people fell into that, well, now it sucks sort of habit. So there are good and bad things about all kinds of systems, and how can we build and how can we be constructive and really build upon what we've done to build better things instead of just trying to break things down because we don't like them. Like the answer always isn't, oh, let's just do pop items because it's what SE did. The answer should be, well, let's come together and build something that we can all enjoy together. And sometimes that's not just going with, which is, the Horizon aspect of it. Like SE did pop items, but pop items wasn't Era. It didn't fit in Era. SE did it because they implemented the Tatter system, and that was the really only reason why they did it. So does that fit within the type of game that we want to play as a community, or Era in itself? So that's what I have to say about that. Besides that, obviously we have the suggestions channel on the Discord. The better worded out your stuff is, and the like I said, the more constructive it is. If it's criticism, the more detailed it is. If it's like something that you're just suggesting, is the more that we look into it. The more positive you are as a person within the community means the more the devs are more likely to talk to you and take stuff from you. Trust me when I say this. We have some people literally on block lists where you're just kind of blacklisted out because that's just who they are as members of the community. And you don't want to be that person, because then you'll never have an input in like the type of game you play. If you come and you be a positive member where you don't come in to just troll and you're not there to just shit in, we'll just sit there and talk with you like I'm doing right now here on the podcast. I have no qualms literally taking my night to like sit here and like talk to people. This is stuff that I love and enjoy. And I'll sit here and talk, and it's fun because we can sit here and talk about a game we love and how to make a game that we're currently playing now better.
It means he
Until
likes us
being-
all, guys. We've all made it. We're on the good list.
Yeah, I mean, I don't fucking know. Well, you guys could be on the ban list. I don't moderate the ban list. I try to not moderate anymore. I have my own corner of the world where I try and come in, and typically the only times when I moderate is when I'm doing updates, because there's a lot of sitting there reading the chat as people freak out because the server went down.
One more question for you, and it's a little more not diving in on this, but
sure.
We with the last event we had with the eggs,
Yeah.
what was the hidden egg combo that you and Frank didn't think the community would find?
Well, so Bera, my fiance, came up with this because we were legitimately being like, we don't know what words to do, because we wanted like some really easy ones, and then we wanted one that's like maybe a little like out of the box, and it was Passover. And the reason why it was Passover is because it's sort of Easter related, but really not with a religion that people relate to Easter. And to be honest, no one guessed it. Legitimately, we had a tracker on like the trade. No one had guessed it. No one had. Well, no, not not that tracker. Like like when you traded it, like we knew, like we had word combinations that people like, or letter combinations that people try to trade in. So we like, it's a weird, because we track trades, and so we're like, oh, like they're guessing these words. No one guessed it. Like even throughout the entire bug system. And Frank was like, unless you give a hint, dude, no one's going to guess that word. Like one guy was like, it could be that, but he immediately dismissed it because it wasn't Easter related. And so I was like no one tried it until I gave it away. I gave it away because it was like a couple of days before the event was ending, and people were like trying to find the last of the 3 words, and I was just like, I literally just said the letter P, and the guy's like, holy fuck, it is Passover. So,
so what was the reward for the Passover combo?
Was it it's the giant, I think it's the giant rabbit costume.
Oh, the giant rabbit costume. Okay, all right.
I think the 2 easy ones were the hatchling shield and the small rabbit one, and then the big rabbit costume was the Passover word, which is fun. Things.
Nice.
I got to get to goldfish scooping soon. That one's fucking ass to code. Let me just say that.
Oh, that's funny.
Are
the Yakutas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are there special Japanese style shirts?
Oh, dude, I want those original. So they did them later on, which started doing like the swimsuits for Sunbreeze Festival. But the Yakutas that they gave away during the early Sunbreeze were like 10 out of 10. Some of the best cosmetics that they ever gave away.
Yeah,
I agree. So like when the swimsuit does come out, will it include the teleport to Puerto Norgo, or however you pronounce that island?
I want to go clamming.
Probably not.
Probably
we'll
not.
Find out.
Okay.
We'll find out. I like so like the biggest thing about this is like one of the things that we're desperately trying to avoid at the game is what you have in retail, which is the world feels dead. Right. When I go through Lafayette as a new player, like if I do new player things, right, and I go through the world, the chance that I interact with someone else is like very, very, very minimal, because no one goes there anymore on retail. There's no need. You have teleport warps. Like if I need to get somewhere, like if you need to go to Pergababa Isle, right?
Good try.
The only way to get there is the mana clippers. So that means if I'm a new player and I'm going to do my COP and someone else is going there, I get to have a boat ride with someone, right? And that's that small community interactions, whether they talk or not, is still player interactions that feel and make the game and the world feel alive, is when you see other players. When you start putting in like the home point teleports and all these other crazy like get around the game type things, even increased movement speed, that is like less of a chance for you to have an interaction with a player that you did before, which is something that is quintessential, not like true MMO, which is why like a lot of the games today that I know that we play, I don't consider like MMO-ish anymore, because like it's just a lot of that community interaction that you used to have, like world exploration and stuff like that, doesn't exist anymore. And that's one of the aspects of Horizon that we're trying to like keep alive as long as we can, is, making it so that when you add a travel, like an enhanced travel aspect to the game, that it doesn't end up killing the feeling of the world being alive and populated. So
those crystals will never work, is what you're saying.
The home point crystals, I can guarantee you right now, they will never work. I think we've debated enacting a couple of them when like Seekers of Halloween comes out as like teleports to Halloween, but then I was like, no, because you have the waypoint system. So like
Mm.
teleport them there and just turn the waypoint system on. So
What about
and
the adventuring companion?
the adventuring fellow is if you're a Code Air guy, you can see that we have like a version 1.0. We call it 0.0 because it's an untested version. It's ready to go. So
Okay.
we're pulling it to our beta shortly. Like so there's a couple of issues with he's been like the person who's deving on it has been working on it for like 3 months.
Mhm.
And so it's on like an older branch and there's a couple of like technical merge conflicts that he's trying to get around so that we can test it. And then once it's tested, it's going live. But Adventuring Fellow is like once a day. Get like that's just a fun little thing to have in my
I love
opinion.
that
So
thing. I always
Oh,
loved
and
it. I
he's
wish
a
that SE had done more.
they're a
yeah,
complete weird too,
I
because
don't think we
and then they just poof.
yeah, I don't think we ever plan on implementing the lower cooldown signal pearl. I don't remember what it was called. Under the original signal pearl, 16 hours.
Right.
But then they eventually did a second signal pearl, which was like once an hour, which is a little too trusty for me. So
Yeah, a little
Hmm.
too trusty, right? Exactly.
yeah,
So then, like, as we look forward to the future, obviously, you know, you can't say the answer or whatever, but like, are things like the Mog Garden being considered for inclusion into your server?
yeah. I mean, anything that Essie's ever done has been included. Like I said, there's a reason why we wanted to try and do Abyssia and Seekers of Halloween as like a 75 concept, is because one, it's new, cool, and it allows us to like customize it a bit, you know, to kind of make it more fun and give the developers more of like a leeway to do fun, different things that they haven't been able to do, like maybe coding on an Era server.
Mhm.
That and it's because a lot of the people who play Final Fantasy 11 private servers for 75 Era will never touch retail. They'll never experience late Abyssia or Seekers of Halloween. And trust me when I say this, and like Quetch can say it. Seekers of Halloween was fucking like a thumper. It was good. That was a
Seekers
really
is one of my favorite
it was
expansions.
a
Yeah.
really it had a good story. The zones were beautiful. The music's amazing. The characters were really good. The
Yeah.
events like Delve and all of those other events, all bangers. But the majority of Final Fantasy 11 players that quit during Era never got to touch it. So a big reason why we wanted to like have that as a goal for Horizon is because like it's a really good expansion pack and it would be really fun, especially with our population, to go into that and be like, okay guys, here's Delve and here's Seekers of Halloween. Go experience this for the first time. Because I talked to a lot of people on Horizon who never touch retail because it's a it's and I hate to say it, they consider it an abomination because it's just it it is like as soon as they changed from the Tanaka development team to the new one, it really was like a Final Fantasy 14 to A Realm Reborn, sort of like very
Right.
quickly going from that original
could feel it.
implementation of the game
Yeah.
Mhm.
to ARR. It was a change of the heart of the game, I would say, a change of like combat systems and a change of how the game was even played, all in very quick, you know, I think it was in less than a year, like the game had a completely different feel to it. So
So if you were like working on Seekers right now, would you guys take into consideration like the, I would say recent but not super recent, nerfs to things like the Idris and like the summoner spamming their BPs and like
um
how things after Rise and Jima
oh
were
yeah.
nerfed for pre-Rise and Jima?
I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like Seekers of Halloween is a completely like clean slate in my book where it comes to balance. Like we're going to be going into it with like, so let's consider Abyssia not a thing, and let's just say okay, so here's End of Wings of the Goddess, which is very easy to see in like a 75 aspect,
Right.
to entering into 70 and entering into Seekers of Halloween, which is not easy at all to see because you're like going into like eye level and crazy shit.
Mhm.
Um, I see it as easy to see because I've played both and I've played both for a very long time. And so I see very easy ways to do certain things like balancing geo and looking at Rune Fencer as a 75 job and looking at Ergon weapons and bringing them to let's dial them back about 80 notches because holy shit, those are the two most broken weapons in the
I
game.
love
Like
EPO,
by
dude. Rune
by
Fencer and EPO is
by
just bread and butter.
I think a parry tank is a very, very cool aspect, and I guarantee you we're going to keep a parry tank exclusively to Rune Fencer because of just the coolness and the feel that it brings to how you play that class. I think it's very cool, and it's probably going to be a better way to make sure that you as a rune fencer are keeping up certain buffs that you have in order to tank. I think a lot better than at least rune fencer is now, is because once you get Epio, you kind of just stand there and keep your runes up and Batuta when you like need to oh shit moment. But besides that, I think playing with the like multiple job abilities that um, Rune Fencer has to really balance around how it has to keep itself alive will be a really cool active tank, um, especially with some of the spells that it potentially could get. My hamster wheel always runs when I look at those two jobs. I think Geo is really easy. People are like, oh my god, it's going to be so broken, but it's really just a factor of doing something like Bard with it, which is take all of its percent bubbles and make them, instead of percent scaling, hard tiered sort of like songs, to where the more Geo skill you have, the more like you hit a next tier to give more of the buff or more of the debuff instead of like a percent based debuffs and buffs are extremely dangerous in any sort of like real balance, because if you have like a 20% buff or 20% debuff, it doesn't matter what you face, like the stronger you get, the more that percent does, and the more like crazy shit gets with it, which is what happened to retail. Is they made Geo percents, which were fine early on, but the more powerful players got, those percent buffs just started getting like ramping up. So
Yep. Absolutely. So like with the current state of like tanking, and obviously I know that like we haven't gone into this and there's no need really to, like, obviously there was the same feeling about Ninja as there was about Red Mage, that it was,
yeah.
perhaps a bit too powerful. But you went ahead and gave Paladin a lot of
Yep.
different buffs that made them more powerful. As we move through these expansions, before we get to Seekers, before Rune Fencer is introduced, is there any like plans to bring like Warrior up to potentially be that tank? Is there going to be any further changes to Ninja? Or, and hear me out here, is there any chance of bringing in Rune Fencer before Seekers?
No, so there's no plans to bring jobs in before because that means you have to give access or some sort of like weird side quest to where they can get
Right.
it before like you're meant to go to the
To the
areas where
zone,
they're
yeah.
like so that's not like an aspect with any jobs. So all the jobs I guarantee right now will come out in their relevant expansions. What I will say here is every expansion we release should be a meta shaking rebalance of the game.
Okay.
So we've already internally discussed it to where our like 1.x patches will kind of semblancely follow what we've done in 1.0 and make adjustments necessary for the balance of the game. But when you introduce new jobs, it gives you a chance to rebalance everything around the introduction of new jobs and the new abilities and the new mobs and the new events that come with it. So it's really a good opportunity to not like wipe it clean, but it's a really good opportunity to go in there and like look at the job state massively, since we're already doing it, right? So since we're already looking at that for TOU as a whole, it's a really good chance to go in there and be like, okay, what are we doing as a whole here, and kind of change things up on a larger scale when it comes to the entire balance for specifically TOU, because then it feels more natural, right? Like if we were to nerf all of the players right now, it would kind of feel weird. But if we release TOAU and we like made a small like nerf adjustment to all player power, it would feel a little more natural to do it at the start of an expansion than it would like in the middle at some random patch.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So those are like the final questions that we have. I want to say thank you so much for your time. We all really appreciate you coming here, and you have
I think
answered
this
some
is supposed to be
seriously.
one. I think this is supposed to be 1 hour, and it's been
No,
We
like 2
try.
years,
we didn't try.
so-
We didn't try. It went way longer. But one
it's
thing that
2
we do.
it's 2 a.m. Mom, please
Yeah.
help.
One thing that we do at the end of each of our podcasts, or at least have
Okay.
started, is something that we call Glitch Fest, and we want to have
Sure.
you here for this
Sure,
thing.
sure.
So
Uh-huh.
we're going to move on to Glitch Fest, and in Glitch Fest, we take a lighthearted approach.
Okay.
to some of the issues that we found while
Oh
playing on the
fuck.
server.
Okay.
Right?
Shit.
Yeah, okay. So I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that Quetch has something that he wants to bring up. So I'm going to send it
Okay.
over to my boy Quetch, and
Yeah, fix it.
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Yeah,
bud.
we talked a little bit about the draw in that you've been working on and been
Yeah,
kind of like picking at, and so I've been camping H&Ms, so it's been fun having this chat with you and getting kind of insight into that process. So we were camping Turtle Aspie
Okay.
a few days ago, and we had people in Cape Terrigan, in Kuftal Tunnel, and wait, what's the other one?
Gustav and VOS.
Valley of Sorrows, right? So so it popped in Valley of Sorrows, and our link shell got claim, and a draw in occurred, but not for the members that were in Valley of Sorrows. The guys in Kuftal got
Oh wait.
got
Are
drawn.
you serious?
I know it. I know this one. Yeah. Okay. I know exactly what's happening. We found it. We found it like 2 days ago. Because like I said, I don't like I have a crazy work schedule right now, so most of my dev time is like super late at night. I was like looking through the H&M script code, and so like as it iterates, so at the end of the claim shield confirm, it picks a winner, and based off of that winner, it's like, okay, for alliance and for each person in this alliance, draw you in. Except it's not checking whether this person's in the zone or not. And so when a draw-in happens, it's setting just that person's position to the position of the mob. But guess what?
Okay.
The position's not relative to the zone. So like if I'm in Romave and I'm setting someone's position in relative to Romave and like Zeta, you're going fucking like off the map somewhere.
Yes.
You're going like you're going like 80 yalms in the air. You're going like 80 yalms under the air. You're going fucking like deep into the tree.
Yeah, our guys
yeah,
got
it's
pulled
a
straight
fun
into a
one.
wall, man. They're just like, what happened?
it's-
They had the
it's-
claim message and everything, so
It's a fun one.
yeah.
So I don't know. I've desperately trying to get it to work because I think it would be a semblance. We have a backup plan to it coming. I don't know how soon. Like I said, I'm trying to like do enough to kind of hold off till 1.2, which I announced during our 1.1 stream is going to be our in-game patch for COP. So it is one of those things where I'm like desperately trying to code for 1.2 and fix this stupid thing so that it's like so H&Ms are at least sufferable until 1.2. While also working on TOA, like my TOAU project that I'm working on. So it's like one of those things where it's just like it's always frustrating to think you have something done because it's working locally, and then like you deploy it to beta and you're like, oh my god, like it's working, people are getting drawn in, and then it goes to live and everybody's like, Eric, why didn't you say fucking claim shield is not supposed to be here? Why am I not getting drawn in? And it's, trust me when I say this, it's the like worst feeling to be like I specifically listened to like so many people's complaints about the H&M system, and then I did that. Like then I sat back and literally leaned back in my chair, and I was just like, okay, like what can we do as like a starting point that doesn't kill the system, like that doesn't require me to rewrite the current system, which is like reducing the spawn points does change, like force me to like rewrite a bunch of the system. And so like what can I do to make it easier? And I'm like, oh well, if we put like a draw, like an end zone drawing on these mobs, then that means as long as you have the people at the points, they'll at least get drawn in. So you really only need one claim party per zone, and it's slightly, it's better for now. So that I don't have to go in and spend like 80 hours redoing this stupid H&M script that I wrote like when I was on a rave back in before we launched. Which I did. Like it's a doozy of a like it is probably one of the most complex scripts that I have personally written for Final Fantasy 11 is our H&M script, and going back and like reducing spawn points to it is not a fun or a fun thing for me. So I was trying to make it better without having to do too much work because there's so many other things that I would rather prioritize than go back to this. and it's not working. So
Hey man, it gave us a good chuckle. Like I think
it's
that
the funny thing is it's stumping me. It's stumping like the person who wrote Claim Shield. It's stumping like 2 other devs because we just don't know why it's currently not working. It's legitimately, so we dumbed it down. We used an actual Claim Shield function, and then what we did is, okay, so fuck Claim Shield because Claim Shield's obvious. No, sorry, draw in. We use an actual drawn function, and they were like, that's not working, so fuck it. And then we got all the way down to, okay, screw everything. We are legitimately going to, when this alliance gets claim, if you are in the same zone as this monster, just set my damn position. Like manually set your character's position to where this mob's at. And that was still not doing it. So we're having a little fun, and I think we're dialing down to it, but it's not a good thing. So the reason why this isn't working may not be a good thing for like the code base, because it means like a major like feature of the code base isn't working as desired. But it's at least not terrible because there are ways to get around it, but they're just not fun ways to get around it. So the code base has something called a module system, which is like you have base code, and then I can write a module to that code which separates it so that when I keep up to date with the base code, they don't conflict with each other because they're separate entities that are connected via like a state reader. So like there's a module that is like, okay, so we read the base code and then we read the module, and that module is applied to the base code, but they're separate, which is really good because that means that we can keep up to date with like LSB without having to worry about conflicts all the time, which happens all the time. But we've run into so many issues with these modules. Can we write things outside of the modules? Yes, but it makes it so that our updates are longer, and our time it takes for us to get things from, say, LSB to ASB to Horizon Beta to like you guys playing it gets just blown to a long time. I think our current.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
I was letting you. I thought you were tailing off there on there, but I had a small one, and I wanted to shout out Finn Gorilski from
Yeah.
Costa del Sol. He actually, I'm in a party just out in Rollenberry Fields, and the thief goes to pull, and all of a sudden I start hearing singing, and I think it's Cal because he sneaks up on me randomly and just hides behind trees, and he's a Gulka. He's like poking his head out like a creeper. I think it's him invisible, just singing into the distance. But apparently there was something with when you throw a dart. And I didn't know about this, but this was common knowledge for everybody else.
Yeah, if you animation, so if you lock style with a dart on to something that's not a dart, the game doesn't know how to read what animation it's supposed to play, so you sing a song instead.
It freaked me out. I thought there was a ghost nearby.
You can do it on retail too. It's really hard to get done, but you can do it on retail.
Thank you.
That's crazy. But I want to say thank you again so much for your time.
Cheers.
This has been so awesome and so insightful. I've had a wonderful time.
Anytime.
I know the rest of these guys have had it as well. I want to say thank you for everyone for watching and listening on whatever platforms you're listening to. Guys, this is the first in our interview series here on the Horizon Level Sync podcast. If you guys want to be a part of the Discord and potentially ask questions, Aerec will be back on. He's already said he wants to be here. We have other people coming up. We may have Mr. Frank coming up soon, and maybe some other folks coming up soon. So if you guys want to ask questions to these people, join our Discord. The link will be in the description or in the comments in the YouTube channel. Make sure you guys check it out. Want to say thank you so much for being here, and I want every one of you to have an absolutely fantastic week. From myself, DA Soccer, Icy Caladrius, Quetch, and our special guest, Aerec. Want to say thank you all for attending and being here and listening. Have an amazing week until we see you next time. Take care, guys. Love you all. Thank you so much.